republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This meeting is being live streamed by Chelmsford Telemedia and posted to the CPS website for interested community members to access and watch. In-person public participation will be taking place tonight in accordance with the Chelmsford School Committee Public Participation Policy. Anyone speaking tonight during the public input portion of the meeting is notified the superintendent's office of the desire to speak and is provided with these guidelines. Upon request, written comments received no later than 12 p.m. on the day of this meeting will also be read and made part of the record of the meeting during the second public input session. So welcome to this meeting of the Chelmsford School Committee. First order of business is to approve our minutes from our meeting on February 4th.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the regular school committee meeting of February 4th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, any comments or corrections? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Okay. All right, next up, we have our student representatives. So,
All right, so the College and Career Fair for CHS students seeking a job or education in performing in visual arts, along with theater design management, will be taking place on Saturday, March 8th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Chelmsford Center for the Arts. Entering the winter sports postseasons, many teams stay alive, some being the girls' basketball and hockey teams and the boys' hockey team. Members of the track, wrestling, and ski team are still competing. Along with this, there have been teams that have won MVC titles, being the boys swim team, girls basketball team, and wrestling team. So congratulations to them and good luck in their postseasons. The girls' school track record for the 1 mile was recently broken by runner Kate Leonard, running an amazing 5-minute, 12-second mile. And the Chelmsford DECA State is 2 days away. They have 20 students competing in this after their 54 of them went to divisionals and 20 of them made it through, making them have a spot at states.
Hi everyone. So senior Sophia Roy placed 4th place as a finisher and finalist at the Harvard National Speech and Debate Tournament in formative speaking last week, and this is not her first time attending, but sadly is her last. And a handful of students throughout all grade levels, mostly seniors, took the seal of biliteracy tests for Spanish and French, but also in their home and native languages today. So congrats to all students. And next week is the junior class officer elections. There are 12 candidates running this year, with speeches taking place next Monday and Tuesday. Good luck to them. And the senior internship program is getting closer, as the first step towards being part of the program is due next Friday. Seniors need to fill out the application form and sign mentor handbook, and students will be notified March 20th if their internship has been approved.
great, thank you. Any good news?
Our good news is here tonight.
Okay.
Our international teachers are here, so I'll wait for that agenda item.
Okay, great. Anybody else, any good news? All right, so moving on, we're at our first public input session. We have 3 registered speakers tonight. For those that are speaking, just to remind you, if you could limit your comments to 3 to 5 minutes so everyone has an opportunity to speak. Remember, this is a comment period. It's for items listed on tonight's agenda. Also, please keep in mind that we will not be responding directly to your comments during this part of the meeting, but we'll try to do so when we reach that item in the agenda. So I'll just call people up in the order I was given. So Shelley Bethel, if you want to come up, and just when you come up, if you just state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Shelley Epstein Bethel. I live at 47 Joffrey Street in Lowell, Massachusetts. I am a Spanish teacher at McCarthy. I am the Chelmsford Federation of Teachers Secretary, and I am also a McCarthy Building Rep. Good evening, and thank you for giving me time to speak. As a McCarthy teacher and the Secretary of the Chelmsford Federation of Teachers, representing McCarthy teachers, we are requesting that you not approve the budget items cutting the literature support position the current teacher is retiring, and the copy clerk position. McCarthy 100% needs an additional supervisor of students, and I would like to give you some backstory on that position. During the planning stages of the move to the 7th and 8th, and then 5 and 6 buildings, it was requested by teachers at a meeting that McCarthy hire an additional supervisor of students. We knew at that time having all the 7th and 8th graders in one building would result in more serious behaviors that would be too much for one supervisor of students to handle. We were told a resounding no. It wasn't even up for discussion. Then again, on February 1st of last school year, after the merge, the Chelmsford Federation of Teachers Executive Board met with Dr. Lang, and it was again requested that McCarthy receive an additional supervisor of students for the following school year, which would be this school year. It went nowhere. It was suggested to us by the administration that it may take students a year or two to get used to the flow of new expectations. I'm here asking you to please approve the supervisor of students position, but to do so without losing our copy clerk. This service is used daily by almost everyone in our building. Our planning time is very valuable, and we spend time planning lessons, writing and returning parent emails and phone calls, correcting student work, attending meetings, and more. Losing the copy clerk would cause hardship on teachers. There are at least 8 teachers off at the same time in our building. With all of us needing to make copies, we will each be spending time in line at the copier to make over 100 copies or more at a time. Sending our jobs to Rico at CHS is not a viable option. It could take up to a week to receive our copies once we send the request because the copies come through interoffice mail. The copy clerk makes at least 10,000 copies a day. I know, it's a lot. It seems more, and sometimes it's more like 15,000. From May 2024 to today, our copy clerk has made over 596,000 copies. You may be thinking, why not do the work all online? Not all of the curriculum is online, especially math, which is mostly on paper. And have you met middle schoolers? Right now, as we turn our backs, when we turn our backs for just a second, they switch tabs and play games. They create Google documents and share them with their friends to talk to them while they are in class and to meet up in the bathrooms. They also use their Chromebooks to Google answers. I personally, as a Spanish teacher, don't use the Chromebook unless it involves having students watch a video. If I have them complete an assignment online, many of them will immediately Google Translate answers. Now, this isn't true for all students, but a majority of them do look up answers as soon as they have the chance. And I know this happens in other classes, which is why many of us try to have a balance of paper and electronic activities. Please find the money somewhere else. Please keep the copy clerk position at McCarthy. The salary is a measly $20,000. Perhaps look at the money budgeted for paraprofessionals and substitutes for this school year that was not used to supplement the copy clerk position for next year, and then find a way to add it back into the building going forward, into the budget going forward. There are 2 math teachers retiring this year. Both are on the top of the pay scale. I suspect that their replacements will be hired at a much lower step. Perhaps you can use that money to supplement the copy clerk. In closing, I would like to remind everyone that Dr. Lang presented to you, the members of school committee, that this move to blend the schools would possibly need more hiring. McCarthy is suffering from the merge, and it's no slight to Dr. Parks. He's doing the best he can with whatever money he's got. But we need the support of the school committee and district to hire more positions, as promised by Dr. Lang's proposal. We shouldn't be cutting positions. And then I just quickly want to address the lit support. The current literature support teacher who is retiring shared with me some concerns about the elimination of one of the 2 current literature support classrooms staffed by a certified reading specialist at McCarthy. 7th and 8th graders in lit support are usually 2 to 4 years below their current grade level, not always comprehending what they've read. ELL students are also supported in the lit support classroom, and they are often 4 or more years below grade level in reading. Currently, the students recommended for literature support are based on various testing tools. The students enrolled in lit support are not required to have an IEP or 504 plan. It is a Gen Ed Tier 2 intervention serving many types of readers. By eliminating a literature support classroom, the criteria will have to change to keep the class sizes purposefully small for this Tier 2 intervention. The fallout of cutting this position will result in the qualifying criteria changing to be much more restricted, resulting in students being exited out of the program who would otherwise be in literature support. And what will happen to these students? They will end up in French or Spanish, a class they are not academically prepared to understand, especially when they enter in the 2nd year of the language. There isn't another place for them to go. The only place these students will receive reading and literacy support and skills is through their ELA teachers, which is not ideal considering that there are other students with IEPs and 504s that also need specialized attention from the classroom teacher. Finding a reading interventionist has been an issue, so this is not a viable backup plan since we can't seem to find them. The language-based program is primarily designed for students who need structured language teaching, which means that a small number of special education-only students are being prioritized over the larger numbers of traditional lit support students who require support as their only avenue to build skills before they reach high school. We ask that you not cut this additional lit support position due to the retirement. We need both of these programs. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Next up, Therese Cohane. And again, if we could try to keep it under 5 minutes, just because we have a
Okay.
big agenda, as you can see.
Sure. I'm Therese Cohane. I live at 44 Highland Street in Lowell. I'm an 8th grade math teacher at McCarthy. In response to the proposed staff changes at McCarthy for the upcoming school year, I have a few comments and questions. I'm not sure I would have survived the Parker-McCarthy transition without the work and support of the copy clerk. The transition for me meant going from teaching 4 core classes, 2 foundations of math and 2 accelerated, to 5 a day, 3 foundations and 2 accelerated. This year I have 109 students with a large number of students on IEPs and 504 plans, as well as ELL students who require some specialized instructional materials. This is not me just asking for 115 copies of the same classwork, but also copies of vocabulary cards, study guides, modified tests and quizzes, color copies and enlargements, reductions, graphs and other displays, as well as materials to be used with other materials. The SEL, social emotional learning lessons, are also copied by the copy clerk for all core teachers. Social emotional learning is the 6th class that is taught on Mondays on our grade 8 team. The teachers have 2 accessible copy machines in the building that are often busy with staff making copies for that day. I have given up on waiting in line to use either of those machines to print out something quick needed for that day. In no way is the position of the copy clerk considered unnecessary, but muchly needed by busy core and other teachers. In regards to eliminating the literacy support teacher and moving those funds to hire a language-based special ed teacher for the upcoming 7th grade group, I have some questions and concerns. I teach 8th grade math and have taught special education and regular, all subjects, to large and small groups of students for 35 years. It might help to interview the stakeholders in this matter, the coordinators, teachers, students, families, and look at iReady, MCAS, and other data. It might behoove the district to gather the data on the percentage of students in the school who are reading below grade level before eliminating the literacy support position. Has the demand for literacy support changed? Will those displaced students and grade 6 referrals end up as special education referrals? Where will the grade 7 literacy support students be dispersed to? There is an absolute need for a second supervisor of students to help support our 7th and 8th graders. But the work of the copy clerk is not outdated in any way, but supports busy and sometimes overwhelmed teachers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, finals, registered speaker Kim Briand.
Hi. Thank you for listening to our concerns. My name is Kim Briand. I live on Garrison Road, and I teach at McCarthy, 7th grade, previously at Parker for a number of years. I also am here to read a letter that is from another teacher who couldn't be here, but it also addresses the literacy support position. So I'll read fast. This letter addresses the devastating news that one of our 2 literacy support teaching positions will be eliminated at McCarthy to provide funding for an 8th grade language-based educator within our special education department. This decision will be detrimental to our current program and the 7th and 8th grade students who benefit from literacy support instruction. This letter was previously sent to school committee members, signed by a concerned teacher at McCarthy, but the concerned teacher's sentiments represent a larger collective of concerned teachers who also work at McCarthy. For the sake of time, I'm only reading a few important excerpts from the letter. The literacy support position is the only Tier 2 intervention we have for general education students who are falling behind in reading. It is an already selective process in order to maintain small group instruction to ensure that these students get the targeted instruction and extra support they need. The typical literacy support student is 2 to 4 grade levels behind with major weaknesses in vocabulary and comprehension. While many of these students can read the text, they do not fully understand what they have read and cannot use the text to complete higher level thinking or work, impacting their ability to access the curriculum across all content areas. According to our current iReady data, in grade 7, there are 62 students reading 1 grade below level, 26 students reading 2 grade levels below, and 53 students reading 3 or more grade levels below, which equals a total of 141 students, according to this criteria, in grade 7 not reading at grade level. Many of these students will potentially need extra support in reading next school year. While the grade 8 students will be off to the high school, as a reference point, there are 67 students reading 1 grade level below, 16 students reading 2 grade levels below, and 54 students reading 3 or more grade levels below, which is a total of 137 students not reading at grade level. At Parker Middle School, there are currently 2 reading specialists that provide literacy support to approximately 75 students this year in grades 5 and 6 total. At Parker Middle School in grade 6, there are currently 8 students in the language-based classroom. Those students will enter 7th grade. There are currently 7 7th grade students in the language-based classroom. So next year, there will be a total of 15 students who need a language-based reading program or language-based program. If we eliminate a reading specialist who provides literacy support, many of the qualifying students will be forced to exit literacy support and add a foreign language where they will likely continue to struggle. For the students exiting literacy support in grade 7, they will be placed into the grade 8 foreign language where they will be an entire year behind their peers. There is an option that can enable us to continue providing Tier 2 support to our general education students with literacy support as well as language-based classroom for our special education students. As I said, right now there are 7 students enrolled in grade 7 language. Assuming all of these students continue and to need this service, there's approximately 8 from 6th grade. The total is 5. So instead of having 2 separate positions for 15 or fewer students, there could be 1 position for a grade 7 and 8 language-based classroom teacher. This is similar to other positions that service a smaller number of students, such as the ELL teacher, who actually services 27 students across both grade levels. By having 1 teacher, there would be no need to eliminate a literacy support position, and there would be several benefits. I will not read all of them, but these are the highlights. Allowing for the budget to stay the same while supporting both our general education students and special education students. Instead of eliminating the position, the grade 7-8 literacy support position could be filled after the current teacher retires, and the language-based teacher could absorb the new grade 8 role. All students will be supported. The criteria for qualifying for literacy support will not have to change, and there will be no population of students who suffer due to budget cuts because the budget would not be impacted. The second literacy support teacher can remain in place, and no student is forced to exit the program early or be found ineligible for help in order to keep class sizes low. The Tier 2 intervention would remain available for general education students who are not reading at grade level. This general education population, which has a higher number of students in need and no other supports in place to help, should not suffer to hire an additional teacher for less than 20 students. 1 language-based teacher for both grades allows for more consistency across the grade levels. This looping model is beneficial to students and the teacher. They'll already be familiar with the teacher will already be familiar with the 8th grade students' strengths and weaknesses and a stronger understanding of their goals and IEPs. It will be easier for the teacher and students to continue from the previous year. The students will be familiar and comfortable with the teacher, leading to an easier and faster transition in September. In summary, we strongly feel that eliminating a literacy support classroom to pay a salary for a grade 8 language-based classroom is prioritizing a small number of students over a larger number of general education children that have no other access to support. Again, for context, there are roughly 7 students enrolled in current grade 7 language-based and 8 students coming from Parker. This total of 15 students does not weigh as heavy as the 40 to 60-plus students that two reading specialists can support. With over 250 students reading below grade level, according to iReady, Tier 2 interventions are needed as strongly as the special education supports are needed, and one reading specialist is not enough to support all of these students. Thank you for listening and your consideration.
Thank you. All right, so thank you all for coming to speak. We're going to now move on to new business, and so I'll pass it to.
Yeah, I'm going to pass it right over to Dr. Hirsch to introduce the Tea Fellows.
Yes, we're very excited this evening. So yearly, we get picked for bringing the Tea Fellows. Now, this is all the Tea Fellows that are in multiple school districts. We actually have 5 of them in Chelmsford. They come here to the Chelmsford Public Schools School Committee meeting because, of course, it's the best. So that's of course why they want to come here. And even though he's not with us anymore daily, Dr. Bayronovan is still part of the program at UMass. So he has been here to help guide them, teach coursework, bring them through all the different things. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bayronovan, and he's going to do a little introduction and then let some of the Tea Fellows speak to you, and you can ask some questions.
Great.
All right, good evening, everyone. It's nice to see everybody again. School committee, Dr. Lang, Dr. Hirsch. It is quite an honor to be back here, this time not necessarily as the mathematics department coordinator, but as the co-director of the Fulbright program at UMass Lowell. And Chelmsford, once again, has done a great job supporting our fellows, both as partner teachers at both the high school and McCarthy Middle School, and additional new teachers joining in as friends and family to support the fellows. So there are 23 of them here tonight. All of them are here both to be part of this and also to observe what a school committee meeting looks like in the United States. And I have invited the 4 fellows who are part of the Chelmsford Public Schools Partner Teacher Program to come here tonight. They will introduce themselves, share where they're from, what they teach, who their partner teacher is, and then very briefly share a little bit about their experience observing, co-teaching, and teaching the students within the Chelmsford Public Schools. So why don't we begin, Rose?
Hello, my name is Rose Magondeta. I come from Malawi. I am a social studies teacher and also special needs education. Being at Chelmsford has been an opportunity and also a great learning experience whereby I could see that special needs education and inclusive education is being practiced as it is supposed to be. I have been in classes where we have observed assessment. I have done part of the assessment for those with individualized education plans. I have been to the gym just yesterday where I could see it was very much inclusive because all students with disabilities were together with all students. So it was very inclusive and I liked it very much. I have been privileged to be in this school and a lot is being done at Chelmsford. And Chelmsford is a best school for our students. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
And Rose is partnered with Ashley Jean at McCarthy, and she also has been working with Peter Zopes at the high school, being a social sciences teacher. Okay, Ethel?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us. I'm Ethel Pujol from Argentina. I am an ESL teacher back home in rural schools. I need to drive sometimes for 3 hours to through the Patagonian steppe to reach my schools. My partner teacher and now friend is Jessica Ferranetti. I love her. She was very inclusive of me in her classes, and we really have taught together. And I could apply all the new knowledge we've acquired in our seminars at UMass Lowell. I've enjoyed being a student at the university with great teachers, and I could apply that at Chelmsford. I love the school inclusivity for us, and I admire the teachers there. I could see Spanish classes, ESL classes with foreign students that really needed, and English classes, and I loved all of them. And I felt welcome and considered a fellow teacher. I could also see the same motivation problems that we have back home. I think we all need to keep on working on making education better and better. And that is kind of useful, you know, that to know that we, all of us teachers, all the communities have the same needs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Olga. I'm from Ukraine. I'm really glad to be here. And I was impressed, of course, of facilities, of the equipment you all have here. But I think the defining conditions to be successful teacher is not about it. It's about the teacher and smart management. So these are the things I felt from the very first day. I really appreciate it. From day one, I was included into the teaching process. So I didn't feel like I was a visitor, observer, a guest. I felt myself like a team that I can contribute, I can make an impact. And also my partner teacher, Veronica, I would say I already mentioned it. She is not a teacher, she is a facilitator. And what I appreciate the most, what I have to come to understand teaching in wartime conditions, that she cares about students' mental health and about their well-being. She doesn't start the lesson till she feels that everyone feels safe. So it's really crucial for me. And I hope that my American colleagues will help me with social emotional learning. Actually, I guess in some way I need help myself. So I hope for your support, and thank you again for having me here. And one more thing, I'm happy to learn about American culture, like from inside the American family, thanks to my partnership family member, Kim. She is here also. So everything is great. Thank you for that.
Great, thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aliu. I'm from Nigeria. I teach economics. So the first point I made is I'm so happy about the warm welcome and the reception of Chelmsford teachers in Chelmsford High School, and as well as McCarthy Middle School. You know, the warm reception and the hospitality shows a lot about how they are passionate about teaching. Because as for me from Nigeria, you know, this is my first time having come here, you know, meeting people that I've never even dreamed of meeting live, and their openness, their kind receptions and hospitality, I think is great. As a teacher from Nigeria, if anybody asks me now from Nigeria, okay, you've been to the US, you spent some time, you've been to their schools, can you recommend the school for us? I think I'm going to recommend Chelmsford. I like the setting, I like how the teacher conduct themselves, and I like the flexibility, you know, in classes. There are some courses that in Nigeria we don't take it in our secondary school system. If you want to take those courses, you have to go to the university, like sociology, like Introduction to Engineering, what we take in engineering subjects. So, and I believe that education, for us to solve the critical problem of the world, I think it has to be through education. It has to be through it. It's the only way that we can get to know what the problem is and how to solve the problem. So what I'm just urging the committee is that they to continue listening and acting as they've been doing. And I believe from there, at least, development and success is very close by. So I'm glad and I'm happy to be here. And I hope and pray that this school should continue moving forward and in terms of delivering educational something to the community. And the community as well should continue to support the school in every good developmental programs that they have. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, does any committee members have questions for any of our guests or Dr. Baranovan or any questions? No? All right, then, well, thank you very much for coming tonight. I hope you enjoy the rest of your stay here. How much longer do you have?
Until the 10th of March.
10th of March, okay. Great. You have a couple more weeks, great. So enjoy the rest of your stay, and again, thank you very much for coming tonight.
Yeah.
Can we do a picture?
Yeah. All right, you want to do a picture? All
Bring
right.
up in the back and get a picture.
Okay.
Right here with the committee. Yep, so committee, that way, everybody, that way. Oh my goodness. You guys stay.
I know I have to be in front. I know, thank you very much. Pointing that out.
You just gotta squish it.
Oh, you did? I almost did on my best. You're gonna go front too, right?
Everybody in, squish, squish, get that middle in.
Come on in.
Hi there, how are you?
Dennis, bring up this way, you guys are all congregating that way.
Move this way a little bit, Come on over. Come on. Shuffle this way.
Oh, I've got, it's like
I can
raining
take
cats.
the picture for
All right, yes, we just try to be in between people so you can have your head in
You just
between
gotta
your
get a couple more
shoulders.
people in the corner there.
I know, you guys gotta.
Come on up.
Shuffle in.
This was Dr. Hirsch's idea. That's a big one.
You're in the front there. Look at Maria's already hiding in the back.
No. I mean, yeah, wait till they all turn around. All right, do we have everybody? Want to take a bunch of pictures? Ready? Cheese, or no cheese? Dr. Beyrano?
That's a very American culture thing. I'm not sure they're familiar with the word
I
cheese
know,
for pictures.
I know. What can I say? All right, we're good.
Cheese.
We're good.
All right, thank you. Whiskey? Did I say whiskey?
It does work. That's what my brother-in-law says. He's from Venezuela. He says the same thing.
They may be moving out.
Oh, you want a water shot?
Oh, sorry. Hold on, let me get Abby's presentation up. Do you want to
All right.
ask him? Just because I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Dr. Beyranovan? Do you want to ask him or no?
Okay, all right, no, not at all. Yeah.
Matthew, is that other woman from Chelmsford? Yeah. Did she want to say a few words? Please have her come
I was
up.
gonna say, we had 5 fellows and they only
Yeah,
had
it-
4.
right.
How did you figure that out?
What's that? I speak multiple languages, Linda.
Okay, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, please, we didn't mean to miss you. So please have a seat and tell us a little bit about your experience.
I'm Eda from Turkey. I'm an English teacher in Istanbul. I am here with Veronica, with Olha. I attended this class at the second week. That's why they forgot me, probably. So it was a great experience for me to observe the classes here because I attended different classes like literature, science, and I guess biology. I'm not sure. and I work in a STEAM-based organization. That's why I wanted to see different classes. My organization is kind of science and arts based. I work in an organization for highly gifted students, so I wanted to see technology classes.
Our computer system.
Technology classes and art and literature classes, because I also teach creative writing lectures. So it was a great experience for me. Thanks for your welcoming. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Maria, I think you had something you want.
Well, I think that it's just wonderful to see this every single year. And this year, the program seems so much larger, is it?
The amount of fellows is around the same amount. We get like 20 to 21,
Yeah.
but like typically Chelmsford only has like 2 to 3. We have 5.
We had more this year, which is really great. Because one of the things we talk about all the time is making sure that our students have folks in their classroom who they can see themselves in. And it's very difficult for us to have this diverse group of teachers and staff and so on. So you're bringing that diversity to us, and I think it's something that we truly should appreciate, and I do appreciate tremendously. Understanding different cultures, how we all work together, understanding different languages, all of this, I think, is key to learning in the world. And I so appreciated hearing today that, you know, the physical things may not be as important as what goes on in the mind of each teacher and each student, and how you, as teachers, use your craft in that classroom to mold the minds, teach the minds that will lead the future of the world. So I really, really appreciated hearing that, especially as we go into our budget hearing. And we have to make decisions about, you know, where the money's going to go. And money is always limited. But the abilities that you bring, the gifts that you bring, are limitless. So thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Great. All right, so again, thank you very much for coming. You're more than welcome to stay. If at some point you need to take off as a group, just give us the thumbs up and we'll kind of pause so we can take care of that. But thank you. All right, next on our agenda.
Yeah, second, we have 2 items before we get into the budget hearing this evening. We have a department presentation, and then we have a school presentation. So our department that's up today is English. So we have Abby Dick with us, who is our English coordinator, and she covers grades 5 to 12. So Abby is going to walk us through some of the work that's been taking place in English, and happy to have you here tonight. So you can jump in whenever you're ready.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. This is a great night. It's a full house. So basically, I'm going to give you an overview, an update of what we've been working on in our department. At Parker, for the English department, we have 16 teachers. These are teachers who teach ELA for about 70 minutes a day, and they teach social science for about 55 minutes a day. At McCarthy, which is grades 7 and 8, we have 8 teachers, 4 for each grade level. And at the high school, we have 13.4. We have 1 teacher who teaches 2 sections of English and 3 of social science. And what's important to understand about English curriculum is that everything we do aligns to the 2017 English Language Arts Standards, which are literature, informational text, foundational skills, which are really basic reading skills. Those standards are still in grade 5. Writing, speaking, listening, and language, which are grammar and vocab. So if you came into our classrooms, no matter what book we're teaching or what assessment we're doing, it is aligned to those standards for each grade level. So starting with grades 5 and 6, our department work, and this really applies to 7 and 8 as well. Of course, we take our yearly MCAS data and we look at that in the fall and talk about that. But more frequently during the year, we look at our iReady data since that comes out fresh during the year. We look at the diagnostic results. We talk about the MyPath, which is the personalized learning program that each student is on. We talk about interventions that are needed in class for particular students. The results from iReady also help us with grouping students in the classroom based on what they need. And of course, we try to celebrate as much as possible our students who are definitely at grade level or well beyond. Also happening in grades 5 and 6, we use the F&P curriculum. And while we've had many elements of the program for the past 5 years or so, just recently the program has come out with writing mini lesson guide for both grade levels. And this has been really critical to our PD and our PD professional development department time during this school year. We've been going through those materials and pulling out the most pertinent lessons that we can add to the pacing guide to make sure that students are getting the writing instruction that they need. These are also connected to the text that students are reading in the program, which is very helpful. And I just wanted to say that this is a part where the building reconfiguration has been so critical in terms of having all the teachers teaching the same thing in the same building at the same time. We're able to meet during the day much more easily. We're able to share materials and have conversations. So it's no longer meetings at Parker, meetings at McCarthy. It's everybody coming together and working together. The other thing that we've been spending a lot of time on are the common writing assessments. So we used to have common writing assessments multiple times per year to cover the multiple types of writing students need to learn. But we decided this year to work really smarter on focusing on the standards that MCAS says our students really need help with. So the two standards that I have up here, writing informative explanatory texts and producing clear and coherent writing in which the development and organization are appropriate to the task, purpose, and audience. When we went through our data, we found out that our students, while they do well on MCAS, are really struggling earning points in their writing on these two particular standards. And this is not just in 5th grade, this trickles up to 10th grade. So we decided this year, instead of doing multiple common writing assessments, to just do 2, sort of a pre and post test. And all of these involved paired passages. So part of the new standards in 2017 was really to put text in front of students independently, have them read it, and then be able to write about the text that they've read. And that's very different from in the past. So they all involve paired passages, and we're really trying to get to the heart of the hardest part of reading or writing instruction, which is helping students generate ideas and then organize those ideas. So setting up our common writing assessments this way has helped us focus our meetings on patterns we're seeing, what students are doing well, and what we really need to tackle in the classroom. Moving on to grades 7 and 8, we have our newish curriculum there, the HMH into Literature textbook, which we're still working on getting into and using the most as we can. What we have focused a lot of our work on last year and this year is coming up with a time-bound pacing guide. So this means that students are, if you visit a 7th grade classroom all at the same time, they will all be working on the same standards and the same text at the same time. This took a lot of collaboration, a lot of meetings to help get students and teachers literally on the same page of what are we focusing on for each time of year. And again, this is apart from the curriculum lens where the building reconfiguration has been incredibly helpful. Teachers can meet more easily during the day. They're sharing ideas. That is something that's a huge benefit in that process. Moving on to the high school, and I know Principal Murray and his group are going to talk a lot about this, but we've been focused on updating the documentation of our curriculum as part of the NEAS process. So this involved coming up with the common formats that we were going to use for our curriculum, clearer materials, making sure teachers have time to meet to talk about those curriculum guides. So that has taken us a lot of time, but it's been really valuable in terms of teachers aligning themselves on what they're doing. The second thing we've been working on a lot is the introduction of the IXL assessment as something we do on a regular basis. So basically, we figured out that from grades 9 through 12, besides grades, the only measure we're really getting was the 10th grade MCAS exam. And that's not enough data for us to know where students are during their entire high school career. It's just a one-time event. So IXL, we're using very much like iReady in that there are windows and the students take the assessment and then we meet and talk about the data and study it together. So this is part of the high school improvement plan. We've had the data uploaded to Panorama, which is our data platform, and it's definitely still a work in progress, but we're very happy with how it's going. IXL is a huge advantage to us because it not only gives us an overall English level to let us know if students are working at grade level, but it gives us very specific personalized strategies for students based on how they do on the assessment. So we're going to continue professional development around this. I think we've only really scratched the surface as to what we can do with it. But this is providing us with much more information about how students are doing relative to the standards in high school that we did not have before. So the way I think about this is we are constantly planning to do something, doing it, checking the data, and then acting to see if this works. So this is my 7th year with this group. I'm impressed every day with the veteran teachers. I'm learning so much from them. And so the way I'm trying to design PD and the learning that we're doing is we're trying new things, we're seeing how they go, and we are definitely working together to continuously improve. I wanted to give a brief shout out to our dual enrollment offerings. In the English department, we have 4, and they have been running for a while, and we are super excited to give kids this opportunity to save money while having a very rigorous college level experience. So the teachers who teach these courses have been, they've submitted their resumes to MCC. There's a process that they go through, and our syllabi had to be approved for them to teach these classes. We're also really happy to keep our electives that we've had going for quite a while. We have Writing for High School, which is a course for incoming 9th graders very specifically who, based on their data from middle school, are definitely going to need an additional support when they get to high school to make sure they're successful. We have Writing for College and Journalism, which are DE courses. We also have Public Speaking, Creative Writing, and a course called Afterlife, which is connections between world religions and literature. So providing electives gives students lots of choices of courses they can take if they're interested in English, in addition to our AP courses and other offerings that we have. And lastly, our CLI Literacy is a program where kids have to demonstrate proficiency in both a second language and English. And I often think about how half of the CLI Literacy is English. And we're so fortunate that students overwhelmingly do very well on the MCAS, and they earn that CLI Literacy by showing their proficiency in English. So learning a second language or knowing a second language is a huge advantage, but the English teachers are definitely doing their part to make sure that the students are prepared. So that is all I have.
Great.
And I will take any questions.
Any questions from anybody?
Okay, so my question is, going back to grades 5 through 6, that department work, the Fontes and Pinnell classroom,
Yeah.
and the writing
Yeah.
component of it, how is that going? How is the implementation going? How are people receiving it? How is it being received by the teachers?
So I think it's going well. I think it's going slowly. I think teachers are at that level very aware that we need more structure around the writing program. I think what they're looking for and what I think we definitely need is a vertical alignment from the K4s up to 8th grade. And we have committed definitely that this PD we're starting now, this is absolutely just scratching the surface of what we need to do. We really want to take advantage of that 70-minute period that we have every day. So yeah, it's slow going, but it's definitely something that we're very committed to. And I definitely understand that we need to improve on that.
That's great. So one more question. In terms, I always think of how the future is going to impact us going forward. And I think AI is, we already had some comments here about search Google, find the answer, do this. But now it's, write my paper. And writing is, in my opinion, the way to get to comprehension and really understand what's being said and so on. So I'm wondering if, as a whole team, whole area, if you're starting to work on policies for AI in the classroom, and if I think there was something with MIT this year, a group that went to MIT, and how that is going, and where are we going with AI?
Yeah, I think.
Answer, I'm looking for the right answer, Abby.
Oh, I definitely have it too. I think, again, that is a huge work in progress that the entire world of English teachers is struggling with right now. We definitely are aware, especially grade 7 and up, of reading student work and realizing this doesn't sound like the student wrote it. So teachers are definitely investigating and learning more, not just about how to catch students using AI, but how to work with students so that they are turning in their original work. I think all our handbooks have wording about turning in your own work and not somebody else's work. So it's something people are stressed about, but at the same time, we had, earlier this year, we had our Ed Camp, and there was a session, there were multiple sessions on using AI as a teacher to help work on your work. Just in terms of finding lessons and developing ideas, and people were so invigorated and excited about that I think we're shifting from being nervous to feeling more confident about understanding how it works and how we can help each other and students to use it appropriately. But I definitely need more PD myself, and I know the teachers do, on best practices and what we can do with this new technology.
Do you perceive from everyone in the department that we're at a point where we need some written policy about AI?
I think so. I mean, I think people are very interested in what the technology committees are doing and what that MIT group is going to come out with. It is something that's really important.
That has to be addressed.
Yeah, because teaching writing and writing is such a difficult skill that it's easy to see why people sometimes cut corners on that, and we want to make sure our students feel prepared to write.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions, Diana?
Yeah, so shifting gears a little bit, as you have heard, some educators here have been speaking about their thoughts on the literacy support teacher positions at the middle school. I have a question that's a little bit broader, but kind of incorporates that question mark. So we've been hearing that the need for this position exists in part because it's a tier 2 intervention that's potentially, according to what some of the teachers are advocating for, a critical way to help students who are way behind grade level, get the services that they need without, being referred to special education or not getting the services. I'm curious if, from your perspective, because you're looking 5 to 12, which is exactly the lens I'm thinking about right now, there are tier 1 issues that are contributing to such a high position, a high number of students in the 7th and 8th grade level who are that far below grade level. So I'm thinking about tier 2 is important, but tier 1 is obviously critical. That's the only thing that hits just about everybody. And it concerns me if there is such a high number of students in our 7th and 8th grade that are not reading at grade level. What does that mean that we need to be doing in 5th and 6th grade? Frankly, probably before that. And it brings back some of my concerns about some literacy curriculum that we use. But aside from that, I guess I'm wondering from your perspective, thinking really specifically about 5th through 12th literacy, where do you see, leaving this year's budget out of it, we know this is a tight year for budget, where do you see the need being for us to be thinking about how to really make sure that these students are, by the time they get to high school, reading on grade level? Is it that we need that 7th and 8th grade period critically? Is it that we need to look more closely at what's happening in 5th and 6th? Is it tier 1? Is it tier 2?
A lot of questions. So one thing I want to start with is that the reading department and the English language arts department, while we work together, are separate things. So
I didn't know that.
yeah,
Okay.
so those particular positions don't fall under like my department.
Gotcha.
But I think what you're suggesting, that our tier 1 instruction could be better to help more students be successful and reach grade level literacy before they need tier 2 and tier 3. And I definitely agree with that. And as our district becomes more diverse, as the student needs become more diverse, especially after COVID, I think all of us are talking about how can we help students get where they need to be within the general education classroom. So it's definitely a big issue.
And I'm not talking up to teachers, by the way. I'm thinking more broadly around curriculum and the way we allocate staff, so.
Yeah, I think our programs and our curriculum have so much differentiation potential that some of which we're just learning, scratching the surface of. So, yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry about misunderstanding the oversight.
No, it's confusing.
Dr. Hirsch could probably give a little bit more information about where we are with the reading numbers and stuff.
Right, so I mean, I think one of the things we have to clarify is when we hear like all these students can't read, we're looking at middle of the year data, and middle of the year data has students that are considered in what we would call the yellow, right? And those students are not so far behind, so those numbers that you're hearing are not actually accurate, because those students are not so far behind. They're just not reading at grade level yet because they still are in the grade level. They have to finish out the school year. It's an end of the year standard. So we're finding that most of our students, when it comes to reading, the foundational skills are there. So when you look at grade 7 and 8, we have maybe 2% of students who are getting specialized reading that do not have phonics in place, phonemic awareness, and high frequency words. Where we're putting the focus in is on vocabulary and reading comprehension for literature and nonfiction text. And that is the role of the English teacher. We do teach English. We teach both those two standards as well as vocabulary development. So that is a tier 1 instruction. So those students wouldn't be going to reading. And when we look at how many students are actually serviced for reading within the district, we have a pretty small number of like 50 students that are getting that tier 2 instruction. All the rest of the students are receiving specialized, if it's in their IEP, specialized reading through their special educator. So they could be in the regular ed classroom, or they could be in a separate classroom, or they could be in that language-based classroom, which they discussed a little bit tonight. So I think you have to look at the numbers, and you have to look at where you are in the beginning of the year and how many students. So when you hear 62 students are reading 1 grade level below, they're supposed, that's okay, that's tier 1 instruction because they're in the middle of the school year. We find that by the time we get to the end of the school year, that number increases and their growth is increasing.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I wasn't making an assumption that it's an alarming, I honestly just wanted the perspective on the curriculum and the overall sort of way in which we're focusing our tier 1. But thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's digging into that data a little bit, like how they're being assessed, how they're being instructed, and just finding that balance, which changes every year when you get a new set of students in front of you.
Any other questions, Susan?
Mine isn't so much a question, but more a comment. We had heard at the end of last school year from quite a few middle school teachers, I think primarily fifth and sixth, concerns they had about the Fountas and Pinnell program. So I'm very glad to hear you've got the writing mini lessons, because I know a lot of people talked about that was something that was lacking, a good solid writing curriculum. So I'm very glad to hear that. But I also heard a lot that there's still a lot of emphasis on teacher read alouds and not enough rigorous reading for the students themselves. So this is not a question, just kind of a hope that in your department meetings and your meetings with teachers, that you're all working on ways to really beef up that student reading. So it's not just comprehension from what they hear, that the students are learning to comprehend what they've read themselves. Because I've been hearing from teachers that they're concerned about that piece being missing.
Sure. No, I definitely appreciate that. And the program has book clubs and it has different ways that students are reading, but I do know that that is a concern that we are definitely working on.
Great. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. Very insightful as usual. And,
Thanks, everybody.
Good to see you.
Abby, thank you.
Right, we're just
We'll,
turning over the crowd a little.
Yeah, we'll let the crowd thin out a little bit. We'll transition Steve in the high school group. You're welcome to come on up. We'll just give it like 30 seconds while people kind of leave, and then we'll be able to go.
Yeah.
I want to switch that.
How are you doing? Good, good. Let's hang on. I'm just gonna use the quick trip.
Felt good when that door opened up. It was hot.
Bodies.
Yeah,
Tim
exactly.
isn't used to this many.
No,
I know, it get a little,
No,
a little steamy in here.
I told my friend, I said, hey, is this gonna be us there? Was I wrong?
You didn't see that there was
Yeah,
budget and
exactly.
teaching fellows on the agenda. I don't think, I've only been on the school committee not quite a year, but I don't think the room has ever been close to this full.
No.
Yeah. And yet it's great.
It is.
All right, so who's got his, he went to the bathroom. All right. Do you have your own presentation to go through?
That's their presentation.
Oh, okay, great.
can
All right,
go
we
on.
can get started, yeah, we
Okay.
can start, yeah. I didn't know if he had to run it.
So Principal Murray's here to give the highlights of Chelmsford High School, and we're going to start off with him and let him run the show, and I'm your human clicker.
Look at that. So, hey, I'm Steve. Thanks for having us. This is great. I have my friends here. We have the real stars is our executive board for our mentoring program is Caroline Pitch, Jennifer Yu, and Sophia Trottier. And their advisor for the mentoring program, which is phenomenal, is Jen Rossini. We'll go over that. And then also we have Alex Cunningham. She's the director of our College and Career Readiness Center. So our presentation is right out of our school improvement plan. So there's 3 components to that. And the first one is the one that everyone gets so excited about is NEASC. So it's endless fun for the family and everyone. So we'll do a NEASC update. We'll also talk about an aspect of the school improvement plan that I think is so important, and it's the SEL component. And then we'll do some really important updates for the Career and College Readiness Center. So NEASC, we got our final report in October, and they gave us they break down the report in 3 areas. One is ongoing work they want to keep working on. Then they also reiterate that in some priority areas with an additional recommendation at the end. And overall, we got a really good report from NEASC. They said we have a really comprehensive program, both in terms of academics, in terms of SEL, and then even our building structurally, we got a good program. Our work now that we got the report is the next 8 years, because in 8 years you start the process to get ready for the next accreditation. We have some things they like us to focus on. So there's 2 places they pointed out ongoing work they want us to do, and Abby, Dick mentioned some of that. And so the first one we're doing is we needed to have a comprehensive document that describes the vision of our graduate. And so we do have, we use the PRIDE acronym as our vision of the graduate, and we had to flesh out what PRIDE means, perseverance, what does that look like? And what they want us to do now in the next few years to go over is create measurable skills for the vision of the graduate, and then how we can embed that vision of the graduate within our curriculum. So those things we'll be working on. The other one is student learning. This is what Abby talked about. They wanted to make sure that all of our curriculum in each department is all in the same kind of template. It wasn't before, but now that it is, and it makes sense. You want some consistency, and it's easier for when new teachers come in. We're just searching one-stop shopping. So as we said, the priority area that they said here is the vision of the graduate, making sure we have measurable skills to assess the growth. And then we want to make sure that that's reflected in our curriculum. So it's a lot of work to do, but it's very important work. Our priority 2 is improving school community support for physical, emotional, intellectual well-being of the students. And in particular, I want to say really thank you to Shannon Bischoff. She's our Director of Guidance and SEL and in the district, and then to Dr. Hirsch for bringing a panorama here. And panorama is great. It's used to get a snapshot of mental and emotional well-being of students. And we've been using the data from that in 2 ways. We've been looking at, one, what are some students who aren't connected to any adult in the building? And we got the information through student surveys, and we also look at panorama lets us look at the whole student from academics, social, emotional, et cetera. And so we were able to identify a bunch of students at the beginning of this year that we know we need to make better connections with. And so what we did is we used one of our PD days. One of the things that I always loved about the middle schools, I was middle school for years, we worked on teams. So you have team time, you can meet with 4 teachers, your other teachers, and you can really work with that student, find out what's going on. At the high school level, you don't have that team. You might have all different we could have 5 different teachers, but one common one. So we used one of the PD days, we took the kids that we were concerned about, and we developed action plans of how we can get these kids connected and support them. And so Panorama has been a big resource for that, so thank you. And then how do we better use our SEL block? And that's on Wednesdays, which is our social emotional kind of advisory. So that's what we'll be working on. Priority 3, ensure school buildings and facilities support the delivery of high-quality curriculum, programs, and services. And this one, I've been in 8 buildings now in my career. This is by far the best building that I've been in structurally. It's so well maintained. We do a very good job in this district here, from the school committee to our town, making sure our building is running. It's 50 years old, so it's going to have its quirks. Nothing will be perfect, but it's always addressed. And we had a group from Acton, Boxborough come the week before vacation to look at our house model. And one of the first things they said when we walked around, they said, "I haven't seen a building that's kept so well." And they have newer buildings than us, but so I think that's a real credit to us in our town for what we're using. So thank you. So this, even though this is a priority area, it's not one that we're worried about. It's one we always stay on top of because that's important. And then the priority 4 areas, what Abby had spoken about, and this is what takes a lot of work, is to take all the curriculum that we currently have and put it in the same format. And they did last year, well, last couple of years, they did all the syllabi into the same format, which is important. And then, and as I said, the last part, once we get it all, is making sure that our vision to graduate is reflected in that the curricula. And then the last recommendation they did is to determine and establish consistent grading practices within each department, so that students are held to common expectations across classes. They don't have to be taught the same, but they should have the same end goal, and they should be have that nice rigorous assessment in terms of, so we have a nice balance. So because right now we have MCAS is no longer the graduation requirements. We have to have our competency determination classes. And so we want to make sure that if we're going to have, say, English 10 as one of our CDs for graduation requirements, that the kids in all grade 10 have the same experience. Because you don't want people teacher shopping. I want this teacher to pass this class because it's easier. We should have the same level of rigor across the board. I think that's important. This would be a big task, so we're going to be working on that over the next couple of years as well. And that brings us to here, our mentoring program, and I'll set aside in a second. One of the things about going to our school improvement plan is social emotional learning and what's important. One of the things I liked, I had a very good mentoring program in my last district, but then I came here and I met Ms. Orsini, and it paled in comparison to what we do here. They're a lot more surgical and strategic in terms of how they put this program together. And what I love is that Ms. Orsini, she really gets together a great executive board, and she really gives them the reins. And these are 3 examples of people who are just energized, sharp, creative, and they really care, and they care about our community and our kids. And I think it's so important to have a good program for SEL for welcoming our 8th graders into the building, and how do we support them throughout the years. And I think our mentoring program is really a great way to jump off that. So I'm going to step to the side and have my 3 experts come up and talk to you about what they do in the mentoring program and how I think it's a resource for all families and kids. Come on, so we bring a couple of chairs. There you go.
Well, hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Jennifer Yu, and I'm a current senior at Chelmsford High School and the president of the Freshman Mentor Program here at Chelmsford. And I'm very excited to share with you a little bit more about a program that has meant so much to me during my transition to the high school, and I'm sure so much more to my community members and many of the staff and faculty in the building as well. So from a high-level perspective, the goal of this program really is to make sure that the middle schoolers coming up to the high school feel very comfortable in a few different senses. So first, in an academic sense, having a mentor there to walk them through the day-to-day of what a school day is like, what classes can be like, how to adjust to the new academic environment. But secondly, how to adjust to the social environment of Chelmsford High School as well. Going from a middle school environment can be very different than a high school environment. You're meeting you're with a bunch of different kids. Oftentimes there are classes where you're taking classes with upperclassmen, and to navigate that can sometimes be very difficult. So to have a mentor here with you, have a buddy on the first day of school right there where you can ask a question is often something that we find brings a lot of comfort to the incoming class, and we're really glad that we're able to provide every year. So specifically, our program consists of around 120 mentors that are upperclassmen each year. And specifically, this includes 90 rising seniors. So these are people that are open to apply to the program at the end of their junior year, and is selected by a panel of staff and faculty through conversation and also through discussion amongst teachers as well of who would be a good representation of the upperclassmen student body, and also who would be a great leader and a great mentor for newcomers to the high school as well. And then we also have 30 rising juniors. So these are our younger mentors, but they also serve as a very invaluable friend for the freshmen coming in. The selection process for these juniors is a little bit different. So these juniors are nominated by staff in the building as people that are really key cornerstone exemplifiers of what it means to be a good student at Chelmsford, a good friend, and a good mentor. And then again, after going through this recommendation process, they will again fill out that application and join the program as a mentor. At a higher level, this program is run by an executive board. I'm joined here today by two of my peers and our amazing advisor, Ms. Jennifer Orsini. But again, this group really is a group that makes this work really fulfilling and really exciting each day. We're often planning events to do each month with the freshmen, with the mentors, making sure that they're excited, just as excited about this work as we are. So really, this group is fantastic, and I hope that moving forward, they will continue to be, as I'm sure. And then finally, the structure of how we meet with our freshmen. So this is how we continue to stay involved with them after the first day. So Caroline and Sophia will talk a little bit more about specific programming, so move-up day, but then also the pairing process. But in a more regular sense, we meet with our mentees once a month in their plus block. So this is similar to what you would find to be a homeroom setting. And we'll do different social bonding events, sometimes, I think more recently, talking about the course selection process, but really just integrating ourselves into their freshman lives and making sure that we're being there for them in a very accessible and relatable way. Awesome, so I'll hand it off to Sophia.
And you just want to push the mic over to...
Yes, okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophia. I'm the vice president of the mentor board. Next, I'm going to talk about what the purpose of the whole mentor program is. And I know that I personally found, when I was a freshman, I found the mentor board and the whole program so helpful because it really gives you a sense of like purpose, and like it has like you have a great relationship with your mentees and your mentors throughout different like stages of the program. And its main purpose is to really just create like a great environment for the incoming students, because many of them don't have friends that they know, and we really just want to create like a supportive and healthy group between the freshmen and the upperclassmen. It's also intended to reduce anxiety in the freshmen and to also give the upperclassmen a sense of leadership. The mentors and the mentor board run both the freshman first day and move-up day. And the move-up day is in June and the freshman's first day is in August. We meet every month, like Jen said, and we do a variety of different activities with them, such as more recently we've been discussing class options for next year, but we also do games with them and we do different like social emotional learning workshops. And it's just a really great way to connect with the younger students and for them to just feel like they're supported by people in all grades and not just their own. And these are just some pictures that we have from previous years for the first day and move up day. The process for mentor-mentee pairings is really simple and it works very well because we send out a Google form to both the mentors and the mentees, and there are certain prompts that ask like what interests you might have and what qualities you would look for in a mentor. And that way the board, once we get all the responses, we go through and we really pair up people that would be a good fit together. So if two people play an instrument, we would probably pair them up if they had like certain like other things in common as well, just so that they can be mentored to have like different ideas of what they could be doing during the year for like leadership and other things. And we also try to pair them with mentors that are in the same house as them so that if they have any questions, the mentors will be able to, through personal experience with the staff and the house offices, to just support them through that.
My name is Caroline Pitts. I'm the secretary of the Mentor Board. So more going into what we do throughout the year, we'll meet with the mentees on the move-up day. So 8th graders will come up and we'll have already been assigned a mentor. Usually you'll get their numbers. A lot of time there will be group chats, and throughout the summer they'll keep in contact. A lot of the 8th graders have questions about scheduling, about this teacher, about this class, and I have a hole in my schedule, so we'll be able to help them out with things like that. And then we also, come the fall, we help run the freshman first day. So there's a lot of scheduling and timing going on with that, so we'll help a lot with the teachers and that stuff. And then, like we said earlier, we run monthly workshops for mentees with topics like organization, extracurricular activities. So usually when tryouts are coming up for maybe a new sport or clubs come around, we usually try to bring up those. And then we'll also talk about resources at CHS and how to reach them. And then we also offer insight on like midterms and how to kind of prepare and stay organized, because jumping from middle school to high school, having all these different exams can be a little overwhelming for some of the freshmen, so we help a lot with that. And also we like to have fun with the mentees. We also usually help them prepare for Spirit Week and for Pep Rally. They have a lot of questions like, what do we wear? What's kind of what's going on with all the spirit stuff? And then mentors will also be assigned to any new student that comes to the high school, no matter their grade. So maybe a new senior, a new junior, they will still be assigned a mentor to kind of make that transition a lot easier for themselves.
Awesome. So closing it off, what's next? This is a program that really, over the past few years, I've seen from firsthand experience has had the ability to impact students across the board and make sure that they feel comfortable not only in the first year, but also throughout the rest of their high school career. But I know that there is so much more potential that can come even after the three of us graduate and the program continues. So some of these ideas that we have on the docket include the idea of no student eats lunch alone program. A program where students who may often feel isolated at lunch or are still navigating that social atmosphere at the school have someone new that they know in the building, a familiar face that they can sit to, talk to, and really build those social connections in the building. Secondly, shared community service projects. So what we've realized over these past few years is that our mentors really are some of the best leaders within the Chelmsford Public Schools community, and more specifically at the high school. So giving them that opportunity to get more involved beyond just with the freshmen, getting them involved in the greater Chelmsford community, really utilizing the collective power that we have as a leadership group to do some good for Chelmsford is something that we're really excited to see moving forward. And then finally, mentors running monthly groups for new students in grades 10, 11, and 12. So as Caroline mentioned earlier, we do currently pair mentors with any new students that transfer in either mid-year or just move into the school system throughout in August going into a new school year. But this is an area of our program that we'd really like to be able to expand, hopefully to support them just as much as we support the freshmen. So making sure that this group of students feel supported throughout the process is definitely something that we're excited to continue developing.
Any questions for the mentor program while they're still here?
Is there a separate group for EL students? How does it work for you?
Yes,
The mentor
to my knowledge, they are treated pretty much similarly to how we treat our freshmen and our transfer students right now. So we'll pair them to a mentor and make sure that they are able to have someone, at least a familiar face in the building. As for any language barriers that may happen or any other special circumstances that we need to do, we'll often get staff members involved so that they can assist in any specific barriers that we may have. But for the most part right now, the main goal of the freshman mentor program is to make sure that we have those social connections in place. And then from there, we'll bring in people that we see may be beneficial to the student.
Any other questions?
Just a comment. It's really hard as a student to be a leader and to go out and like meet people. So I appreciate you guys standing up and helping people go through that process. Because coming into school is hard. I don't remember it. It was like a million years ago. And I remember it was hard, and I'm super glad you guys are around doing the work. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything you do. Obviously, it's a great program. You guys are doing great work, so
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
you.
I think Ms. Orsini started this, right?
I did not. Thank you for thinking that.
Who did?
I started my work with it, I think, in 2013 or 2014, so it's been.
With this group, but I know you've been involved with it quite a bit. And it is great, and mentoring is leadership. So it's an incredible skill to have under your belt. And being mentored to the mentee, receiving your mentorship, learns a lot too in that process. It's a reciprocal thing, so it's absolutely amazing to see. Thank you.
All right, great.
Mrs. Santos, your daughters were two of the best. Also have to point out that Lana is also on the mentor board.
I thought I saw you there in the picture.
Yeah, it is great. My son's a senior this year, and he still keeps in contact with his mentor. Mentor graduated, so he did real well, but it's still, those are nice connections they have. I think it's worth learning. So I'll bring Alex Cunningham up. She's our Director of College and Career Readiness Center program. And so about, 7, 8 years ago, maybe more, Dr. Lang talked about dual enrollment and talked about the benefits of that. I didn't know much about it then, and I do now, and I'm glad he brought that forward and made sure that was something that we need to focus on. And with John Morris, our science coordinator, and Steph Quinn, our social science coordinator, they really took the ball and ran with it. They got this organized, and then when we were fortunate enough, we got Alex, and Alex here, it's just exploded since then. And so our purpose here is to look at what we've done and where we're going, and then what are the benefits of this. It's a really great program for families and kids, and I'm very fortunate to have a lot of really talented staff involved in this and giving kids the college experience and the offset with a money offset.
All right. First, I'd like to say, who put me after them? Wow. You guys really set me up. Good job, though. So I'm going to just talk about the Career Center. Oh, let me introduce myself first. So I'm Alex Cunningham. I am the Career and College Readiness Facilitator. I oversee the Career Center, which over the past few years I've worked to develop to become more of a career and college space where students can go and do a variety of different things. So I run a couple of programs which I'll go over, and then some other things I do is I meet one-on-one with students. We help with, preparing for their future tremendously, whether that be a career cluster inventory or resume building or mock interviews. This year I'm particularly excited about a new class that we launched for our internship course. So that has about, I think it's like over 50 students in it this year, which is pretty cool because it acts as like a lecture hall for students to get used to what their college experience might be like, but also gives them some insight on how to prepare for their internship. So first I'll talk a little bit about the Innovation Pathway Program, which is one that we started, I didn't start. John Morris and Steph Quinn started back in 2020, and I jumped on due to that programming. So a lot of you are familiar with the program, so I'll just go over the numbers. But basically, for those of you who are new, it is a program that we wrote a grant for back in 2021 and then again in 2022. But it allows students to gain coursework and experience in specific high-demand industries. So specifically, we run 4 out of the 5 pathways offered by DESE. So we have a business and finance pathway, information technology, engineering, manufacturing, and then life science. Both business and finance and information technology are in their 4th year this year. And engineering, manufacturing, and life science are both in their 3rd year. So in order to save space on this slide, I didn't put in our first 2 years. Oh, I'm still in the first one, sorry. I'll go through the numbers really quick. No, you're okay. Okay, so for SY 21-22, which isn't up there, we had 34 applicants. The following year in 22-23, we had 38 applicants. And then you can see broken down across the pathways up on the screen is SY 23-24, we jumped up to 70. SY 24-25, we took a little dip to 52 applicants, and then currently, so far, the application is due on February 28th, so a couple of days from now. SY 25 applicants so far, we're looking at 71, but Dr. Parks just told me just now he had about 6 requests in his email, so we might be close to 80 now. We still have another day or 2 left, so we're looking at bigger numbers for that as well.
It's 9th graders that apply for the program?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes. So you can apply as a current 8th grader or current 9th grader.
Oh, both, okay.
Yep, in order to fit the coursework in your schedule. Okay. So next brings me to the growth of the senior internship program. This is separate from Innovation Pathways, but our Innovation Pathway students do participate in an internship or capstone project to complete their pathway their senior year. So the growth of this has been tremendous. It's been crazy, but it's awesome. So the first year we launched this program in SY 21-22, we had 31 interns. And the following year in 22-23, we jumped up to 98. Just last year, we had 127 senior interns, and then this current year, applications are not due yet. They're due March 7th, so they still have a little bit of time. But on an interest survey that we took not that long ago, back in December, we had over 200 stated that they were interested on the survey. So what the senior internship is, for those of you that might not know, is our seniors can finish their academics in 3rd term, and then 4th term, they can actually go out and get hands-on experience at an internship. So they do the networking and the outreach themselves, secure themselves a spot, fill out an application and a few other documents, and then they get accepted into the program, like Lana said, on the 20th, and they will begin their internship on April 7th until May 23rd this year. At the end of the internship, they will do a presentation and an exhibition. The exhibition, everyone is welcome to come to and see what our students did for internship. They will have a deliverable, like a PowerPoint or a trifold, to share with you, so you're all welcome. I'll send an email for that as well. So we're looking forward to that. Next program. So the next program is our dual enrollment program, which was mentioned a little bit by Abby and then also Steve. We have been tremendously growing this program as well. So again, more numbers. I hope I'm not boring you with them. But I know this program started well before me with Steph Quinn, and then I think Bobby Lyons had part in this program as well. But when I jumped in, it was school year 21-22. We had 25 dual enrollment courses across 78 sections. So we had 492 dual enrollment registrations and 1,483 total dual enrollment credits for CHS students. The following year in 22-23, we jumped up a course. We had 26 courses and 77 sections. We saw our registrations go up again to 543, and then our total credits were 1,473. The year after that, we were able to add a few more courses. We had 28 courses, 85 sections, 586 dual enrollment registrations, and then a total dual enrollment credit for CHS students was 1,503. This year, we have, for 24-25, we have 30 courses that we have offered in 79 sections. We saw a little dip, and I would love to think that's because of all the offerings we can offer students now, that some of them are choosing to take part in internship, maybe then a second semester dual enrollment course. So our total dual enrollment registrations for this year was 405, and that was a total of 1,221 dual enrollment credits. Also, for MCC, the turnaround to get in applications was about 4 days, so that also didn't help with that number either. We offer a 1-credit course that's not dual enrollment, but it is a free college credit. It's a 1 in-kind donation from Middlesex Community College, and freshmen and sophomores can do this class. And we saw a huge uptick in that course this year. Myself, along with all of the counselors, have a section of that. So we are seeing a lot more students take advantage of our dual enrollment program, which is amazing. CHS is also very lucky to have so many teachers who have the credentials and knowledge for high school instruction as well as college adjunct. Okay, and then to continue dual enrollment, I'll be quick with this one, but this is the cost savings. So CHS and MCC dual enrollment, so that is if a student takes a dual enrollment class at Chelmsford High School. For the last 3 years, we haven't seen a move in the cost per credit. It's $126 per credit. And then Middlesex Community College non-DE student. So this is if a student takes a college course, say over the summer or in conjunction outside of their academics at Chelmsford High School, that would cost $252 per credit. And then at UMass Amherst, the cost per credit would be $1,074 with tuition and fees as well is included in that. So with the second row there, the 252, that is only if students don't have high school diplomas. We did see that recently the governor signed a bill to pass for free dual enrollment. So many words. For free community college in Massachusetts. So if a student does get their high school diploma, they can then go to community college for free, save time and a lot of money, and then move on to an institution after that of their choice. So in the far right column, total student savings against Middlesex Community College was $200,700, and then against UMass Amherst was over $2.5 million, just at CHS.
Can I ask a question about that in terms of the free tuition? How does that impact us?
That's only for people who degree.
We had quite a few meetings with MCC to see how it would impact our dual enrollment program. The answer is it doesn't, because one of the criteria to participate in the free community college is that you have a high school diploma.
Okay, so if I can get it for free when I go on and I have my high school diploma, why would I pay for it during?
Great question. Yes. So, because it's a huge time savings. So we, on top of the dual enrollment classes that we have put them together in a way that creates we're almost done with an associate's degree, which I think I had gone over before here. Which we were really nervous that this program with free community college was going to ruin that for us. And we learned I learned connecting with a lot of parents that they were actually still interested in the program because of the time savings for their students. The total, if they complete the associate degree program, the total still runs them about $7,000 and some odd dollars. So it's still a really good.
It's still attractive enough.
Oh, yeah.
Get that done at the same time.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
So yes.
interesting. Good question.
And we're still kind of juggling what that might look like too in the future. And I know MCC is still juggling on their end, what that looks like for them. So I'm sure there's still some things up in the air as well, but that is a good question.
What the impact is gonna be long-term.
Yep, right.
You would have classes under your belt to then.
No, I understand.
Move forward and
Yeah.
be done. Otherwise, you're starting from scratch if you were to take nothing in high school.
No, I
Right.
totally understand. I
Right.
mean, if you get to leave with that associate's degree, of course, there's savings here, and it's a degree, so it should be recognized by hopefully any institution, and not just, the UMass Amherst or at UMass.
Right.
And so on. But I do think that, I've heard a lot of people talk about the fact that it's now free when you leave high school. So you might invest the time still and just get it done then. But this is, it's going to be curious to see how it goes forward here.
Is it still free for students in the innovation pathways to take dual enrollment courses?
That's a good question. Yes, right now we still have funding from the Innovation Pathways grant to pay for the dual enrollment courses, 2 dual enrollment courses for those students.
So that's at least something as well.
Right.
Great.
All right. And then one more thing. Oh, I did change the slide a little bit, I think. But so we are currently working on the Massachusetts Early College Program, which provides a structured program of study and supports that increase college success and career readiness for students, and it prioritizes historically underrepresented students. So in order for students to access the pathway, they just need to complete a minimum of 12 credits, and it is entirely free to them. So we're currently working on the pre-planning grant, or we were granted $26,000 for the pre-planning grant, and we are looking to work on that soon. We will start probably in the spring, early summer, start doing that work in hopes to then launch the program in SY 27. Yes.
And who's it targeted to?
So it is targeted to historically underrepresented populations, and the idea is for them to come into school and complete a sequence of college classes that is free to them, and they can then go to a 2 to 4 year institution after that. Yes.
Is that also in conjunction with Middlesex?
Yes. Yes. Good question. Yes. I did take a few notes from our senior internship slide that I wanted to mention. I wanted to share a few of the internships that some of our students are participating in because I'm really excited about some of them. So this past year, 2 years ago, we started with the police department, so we have 5 students there. This is our first year with the fire department, so we have a couple of students there. I just started a partnership with the DPW, so we have quite a few engineering and architectural students working on some of the ground planning and blueprints for some of our Chelmsford buildings, which is awesome. And particularly my favorite one, we had a student last year who was going to mortuary school. That was her dream. And she worked at a local funeral home supporting with mortuary cosmetology and absolutely loved it.
She was killing it.
She was awesome. Yeah.
I love that.
So we have a lot of students in the K-8 schools. They're doing great things. So we're excited. That's all I got.
Great.
Thank you.
Any questions? Great, thank you.
What I like about this, all three, it's always changing. The programs aren't stagnant, so always innovating and improving, and very fortunate to have Alex and our three, Mr. Orsini right here, so it's great.
Awesome. Thank you.
And just to comment to Steve, when you figure out how to get all your teachers to grade the same way, let me know that.
Exactly.
That's like herding cats.
We're gonna have students grade themselves. It's the honor system. It'll be great, so. Thank you, everyone.
All right,
Appreciate
thank
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, we'll just take a sec while we transition to the next agenda item, which is our actual budget review for fiscal '26. Yeah, we'll take a 2-second break if you'd like.
Brief recess.
Brief recess.
All right, stretch it out.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, thank you.
Lana.
You don't want to stay up until midnight with us?
I'll
No,
watch,
she's
I'll
like,
join you guys on the live stream.
Hi, nice to meet you. President of the Union. Yes, Diana LeBeau, it's nice to meet you.
Huh?
It's really nice to meet you. Next slide.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, I got a thing. I was like, yeah, must stay.
Yeah.
I'll be back at like 9.
We'll see you back here in a few years when you run for school committee. Patrick.
They may want to get it so he gets a credit so he can use it like an age or something.
You can run against him though.
Something like that where they already have
Your
credits.
grandfather was on this? What's his name?
I'm gonna do 2 years at Middlesex, then go to UNH.
Robert Keogh.
Well, wherever, I'm just
I
saying.
know the Keogh family.
Exactly.
Yeah, so.
That's crazy.
It's already having an
Can I
impact.
just say for like a
Whether a person
housekeeping
decides
thought?
to go
Yeah.
to community
If
college.
in the future we could maybe have the budget detailed
Oh, yeah, no.
conversation on a night where we don't have 3 presentations that take us till 7:45, I'm feeling really like my brain is gonna have a lot of fun for the next couple hours or however long.
It honestly just depends on like kind of what's on the schedule. We did get doubled up with the presentations, so usually you need to be a department or a school. This just happened to be a month that had both, but yeah, we'll definitely take that into consideration going forward.
Yeah, just as a thought, because I know it's going to be a struggle for me to be like really focused for however long this takes after that. Wonderful, but
There was a lot today.
It was.
All right, do you want to start without?
Right back up.
Okay, all right, why don't we get going then on this? Looking at the budget, so basically, we're gonna go through all the different pages in the budget. People can ask questions if they have any questions, and then we'll have to take individual votes on each of the items in there. So each page will take a vote for that particular amount, and at the end, we have to take one final vote for the whole thing.
Correct.
Right?
You're right. Yeah, if you look at page 10 of your budget, that's what we term the summary level totals. And the budget recommendation for fiscal '26, $75,650,000. So all of those individual lines that read right down on the left are what we're going to go through page by page. And again, ask questions. We've made notes on them. And then at the end of each page, Dennis or I will introduce the page with the bottom line number. Be a motion, a second, you can discuss, give you answers, things along those lines. And then at the very end, we'll take one cumulative vote, because ultimately it's a bottom line budget that goes forward to town meeting. I mentioned to Dennis before the meeting, so we have the recommended budget here. We're going to have our budget meeting tonight. I'm going to be meeting with 3 members from the FinCom. We always do that. I have that meeting next Monday. I'll obviously give you updates as we go along, getting ready for April town meeting, but this is historically how we've done this. And just before we kind of get into the budget, just one quick note. Obviously, we had some individuals that spoke earlier about a couple of different budget items, and we certainly have gotten a couple of emails very similar to the verbiage that you got. And as I was kind of reflecting and even looking back at some of this, this is really the first budget in my 10 years here that we've had to look at any type of restructuring or even kind of reductions of certain levels within the budget. We've been able to have level service, so we haven't been talking about actually deleting any positions or even having to reapportion positions in the budget. We, over the last number of years, have actually been adding some positions, so this is certainly a tight budget. We worked very closely with the school principals and department coordinators as we're putting recommendations together to live within the kind of budget confines we have. I think in the end, we were actually fortunate with the recommendation before you to really not be looking at budget cuts, but we have had to recommend kind of realignment or you call it basically a shifting or kind of a swapping of positions within schools. So a teacher for a teacher. It isn't that we're actually cutting a teaching position, but we just looked at our available staff and said, the recommendation is to actually shift a teacher from here to here, and here's why. And these are the conversations we'll have tonight. Obviously, another difficult one was, it'll come up later with regard to trying to have an additional supervisor of students position at McCarthy to, again, kind of help with student management and some of the oversight, which obviously helps the kids that are in the school. It actually helps the staff because a lot of what happens in the school carries over into the classrooms. And again, we didn't hear a speaker say that they didn't actually support that. And this is something we have actually talked about for a couple of years. As we were doing the reallocation and the realignment of the middle schools, we knew we were going to have to make some adjustments as we went. And we've been able to do things and see where we might be able to do things better. So this was another one where we said, all right, with the resources we have at the school, are there ways that we might be able to shift some of the staffing, to shift some of the allocation to be able to accomplish what we want to get done? So certainly there were hard choices in this. We have looked at that, and that's, again, what we'll kind of talk about as we go through the budget. But this is, this is a tight budget. We talked about this being a tight budget year. I think next year is going to follow. But I think the budget before you that we made the recommendation on obviously was months in the making. I always want to thank Joanna and the staff in her department and the school level that helped us put this together. But I think it really does keep us on track with a lot of the momentum that we've had around our programs and priorities and focus areas. But I look forward to going page by page through the budget with you and answering questions and talking through the recommendations.
All right, anybody have any general questions before we get into the nitty-gritty details?
Let's just get going.
What's that?
Let's get into it. Let's go.
Get it going?
Get it done.
Okay, all right. So we're gonna start then on page 11. Page 11 is the budget for the school committee. Does anybody have any questions on that? Yeah.
So I'm gonna have a lot of questions. I
That's
apologize.
good.
It's my first year doing this. Other expenses, I assume that includes our attendance at our conference that we are given to attend each fall. What else is included under other expenses? Obviously, I know we aren't stipend, there's no, what is the costs?
Sure, and again, we will go through all these. Joanna will have like granular level detail. That would be a count, just in broad terms, that certainly would pay for like any dues and subscriptions that you have, so like your membership to the Mass Association of School Committees. If you do attend the Mass Conference, that would be the line that would pay for the registration fees, any of the reimbursements for, travel, things along those lines. Again, this would even be small items, if we were to purchase a business cards or something like that for the school committee, those type of items. I don't know if there were any other big ones that jump out to you.
I think the other big one was the enrollment projection falls on the school committee.
Oh, yeah, you have a membership with NASDAQ, and they provide the annual enrollment projection that we use as part of the budget. It's one of the appendices.
Okay,
Okay,
all right,
thank you.
good. All right, any other questions on this particular? All right, Maria, you're up.
I make a motion to approve item 1110, school committee, in the amount of $34,700 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Okay, I think we have to roll call for each of
do,
those. Yeah, roll
yeah.
call. All right, so around the horn. Diana?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Okay, moving on to page 12, superintendent's budget. Any questions on this one?
I have one. I noticed there was a large jump from fiscal year 24 to 25 in contracted services. And I'm curious what contracted services are covered. Is that something related to the school redesign? What's the specific focus of that?
This is primarily for the website.
Yeah, so Jenny Omeg, who's our website manager and media individual, she falls within the superintendent's budget. So we actually have the contract in, under contracted services for the website maintenance, any of the updates that we have to do to the website, social media platforms, things along those lines.
Is there a reason that went up dramatically from 24 to 25?
And it's just a budget amount.
No, you're looking at the first two columns, 23 and 24 are actuals.
Yep.
The third column of 25 is what was actually budgeted. And then you're seeing it's actually a level funded budget going into 26.
Oh.
We just had less actuals in 23 and 24.
Right. So I guess I'm just curious, what's the justification for the much larger budget than the actuals have historically been?
Yep, so if they're, like when I give my budget projection, if we find that we're not going to spend the 50,000, we'll bring that forward as a recommendation for reallocation. At this time, we don't know if we're going to be cutting back on any website development or that. So at this time, we just kept it level with this year.
Okay.
Yeah. You will also find, like, one of the things that we do at the end of the third quarter, at the end of March, Joanna will do her third quarter report, we'll do a projection on available funds within the budget, and sometimes that's when we bring back like some one-time expenditure recommendations to the committee. There have been certain areas, just globally within the budget over the last couple of years, that we've been able to actually tap the use of grant funds, like ESSER funds, when we had those available to us. So we always tried to maximize the use of the ESSER funds because we knew they would go away. So sometimes we did have funds that hit ESSER as opposed to the local budget. That created a little bit of a surplus in the local budget, which we then spend for one-time spending. ESSER is now completely gone. We don't have any ESSER funds anymore. So everything that we have in the budget is basically baked into this document, just as a point of reference.
Then, again, I apologize if I'm disrupting process here, but I guess my question is this. My concern, if we go without a bigger picture conversation, if we go section by section to approve the budgets, and then we get to a section where we're talking about personnel, if we have already approved every other budget piece, we don't have any wiggle room if we need to talk about figuring out if there are funds that we can pull from elsewhere to not cut a potential staff position. I'm not saying that that's necessarily the decision we would make as a group, but I guess I'm just curious, like, let's say, you know, we wanted to talk about, are there other places that we could save, quote unquote, to be able to open up one of the positions that is currently on the docket to be cut? It would be too late by the time we get to that. Does that make sense?
I hear what you're saying. You would have to go back to one of the other line items that you've approved and potentially amend that line item. You know, even over the course of the school year, like I might bring a recommendation to you, you could always say, you know, Jay, would you take a look at this? You know, you do have the ability to amend line items throughout the course of the year.
Right.
What I would recommend, we've always done this, kind of going page by page to just keep some semblance of order to the budget review. I would do it page by page, and then if you do have a question or if something comes up in the end, you know, it certainly doesn't prohibit you from going back and asking to take a further look at something, but that would be based on the will of the full body when you got to that point.
We could always reconsider, you know, if the group would wanted to go back.
Yeah, no, I don't have a specific concern with this one or the last one, but I am thinking like, we might have to revisit this if there's something we really need to, because I know we can't exactly add more broadly to the budget, so that's all.
Other questions? All right, I just had one question, is just, you know, I know there's some positions in here that, you know, the salaries have remained the same, and I know they're not necessarily affiliated with some of the union groups that were negotiating. How do we deal with those? And, you know, I know we're gonna negotiate with the union as a whole, how do we deal with those? And do we have money set aside for those people too?
Right. So what you're gonna see throughout the budget document itself is there are certain positions where you'll see if there's like a singular person that has a salary in '25, the salary went up in '26. These would be individuals that are already under contract. So if they already have a contract in place and the contract calls for a specific amount for the following year, that's included because the contract's already in place. So a lot of individual contracts would have that. We then have a category of employee that are considered non-affiliated. We have about 80 staff in the district, 80, that don't fall within a collective bargaining agreement. We typically, at the end of the budget process and at the end of collective bargaining, if we've negotiated a contract with our employee groups of X amount, we typically then come back and we vote to grant that X amount increase to all of the non-affiliated employees. That's how we typically have done it. What I have done a little bit deeper in the budget, I figured exactly what page. There's a page that has a reserve, it's called Reserve for COLA increases. So that's reserved for basically bargaining and negotiations. So there's a dollar amount in that category which the committee will use as we're negotiating contracts. And that includes a set aside of a certain percentage to pay for any of our, the teacher contract is up, the support staff contract is up, the administrator contract is up, as well as a set aside for non-affiliated employees. So if you find non-affiliated employees also, that same set aside is there for them. So once contracts are settled, we will typically go back to that. We'd be able to allocate, you'd have to transfer. That's one of those crazy transfers that Joanna prepares because you're moving money from one account, sprinkling it through the budget. But that's at the point it would happen. But it's a little bit deeper into the budget. I just don't have the exact page number, but it's called Salary Reserve for COLA.
So even though it shows up on the teacher's page, I think it encompasses all.
It's a district-wide.
Okay, so it encompasses all of the groups.
Yeah, we only have one account district-wide. It's basically a holding account where you would put the funds in.
Page 22.
It's on page 22.
Okay. All right, any other questions on page 12? Okay, Maria?
I make a motion to approve item 1210, superintendent, in the amount of $504,857, presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Okay, Diana?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on to page 13, assistant superintendent. Any questions on this page? Nobody questions the assistant superintendent. Except the superintendent. Yeah. All right, I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to approve item number 1220, assistant superintendent, in the amount of $286,244, presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
All right, Diana?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. All right, moving on, page 14, district-wide. Questions on this one? My question just is, in the notes, it mentions that we're gonna replace our copiers through one time. So are we replacing it this year, or we're looking to replace it next year, the copiers?
When I do my budget projection, which will probably at the end of March, it's on the list to
Okay.
consider for this year. However, there's a lot on the list
Yeah.
for this year, so we'll see how it falls out in the priority. Our copiers, we did, in this budget book, do a multi-year refresh. So we have about 30, and then like we refreshed maybe 12 last year. So it's just a matter of, and the oldest ones are 6 years old. So we just have to let it see where it falls in the priority.
Okay.
If we, how many more of those 18 or whatever we want to refresh this year or next.
Okay, so it could be this year, could be next year. Okay, all right, great. Anybody else have questions on this page? Okay.
I make a motion to approve item number 1230, district-wide, in the amount of $523,700 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Okay, Diana?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maria? Aye. Aye. Yeah, we're all gonna get silly by the end, so lose track of ourselves. All right, next we're on to page 15, business and finance. Any questions on this page? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
I make a motion to approve item number 1410, business and finance, in the amount of $501,941 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Okay, Diana? Susan?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to page 16, human resources. Any questions on this page? It's good. Okay, Maria?
I make a motion to approve item number 1420, human resources, in the amount of $350,670 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Okay, Diana? Susan?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, page 17, legal services and settlements. Any questions on this page? It's good. Okay, yep.
I make a motion to approve item number 1430 through 1435, legal services and settlements, in the amount of $123,000 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Diana? Susan?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next, page 18, district-wide MIS. Any questions?
I did have a question. So I saw the note about the contracted service line around the cybersecurity monitoring suite. I just would like to hear a little bit more. Is this something like we're gonna put out an RFP for an option for that? Is this something we already have a plan for a specific software to purchase? And is this something we don't currently have or just we need to refresh? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so this is something that Bill Silver, our technology director, annually kind of takes the lead on. E-rate is a funding source or reimbursement source
Right.
for school systems to be able to get funding to support certain technologies. So there was we've obviously been working the last 2 years, we've received smaller grants from the state to do cybersecurity work within schools, to help kind of stop on, phishing and different kind of exposure of our network to the outside. So anytime E-rate comes along, typically what ends up happening is you put out I forget the exact term for it, but it's like a statement of interest almost, that you want vendors to come and provide proposals to provide services to you. It's almost like a little mini bid competition. Usually the providers are state contract vendors, so they've already gone through kind of a procurement process. He would do that. He would select a vendor to be able to work with, and he would then apply for E-rate funds. And then we would be reimbursed based on our district size, a certain percentage of the funds. So I think Bill obviously feels like we don't have this layer of protection right now, that this is something that we need to add. I think he's hopeful that the cybersecurity grant is going to come through. Again, we've been successful the last 2 years. So what he's building in is the portion of funding that if we do get the grant, we would then have the funds there to allocate toward the project. In the event we didn't get the grant, if that were to happen, then we'd have to come back to the drawing board. We would obviously have a portion of funds that we could allocate towards something. We may have to look again deep in the budget somewhere else if we wanted to reallocate funding to do it. We may say, you know what, this is something we're going to hold off for a year. We know what the risks are, and we're going to apply for the security grant, say, a year from now. But this basically assumes that the application is successful, and it budgets for the amount of money that we would have to spend for our piece of the grant to have the project be done.
So the 140,000 on that line is essentially like 60% of the overall.
Well, it's really 60,000. We always had 80,000 in the line, so this is, the addition is 60,000.
Got it, okay.
Right, any other questions on this page? Okay.
I make a motion to approve item number 1450, district-wide miscellaneous, in the amount of $1,674,981, as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Okay, Diana?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, page 19 is curriculum directors. Any questions here?
I am wondering, because I actually had a very hard time finding this line by line. What are the 11 curriculum? I know what some of them, who some of them are and what they do, but is there like a list somewhere where I could know what the 11 are?
Yeah, so everything in the budget, like all of those FTEs and dollar amounts, tie out to the staff salary book. So if you look
Right.
on page 48, right at the bottom of 48. is
District-wide?
Yep,
Okay.
there's 11 FTEs, adding up to 1.308, and that crosswalks back to the main document.
Okay.
So every single FTE in the budget crosswalks back to that main page.
Okay.
Just a question on the scheduler, doubled, what, 1.5 to
Yeah, so
10?
this was a stipend that we are allocating towards the individual who helps with the high school schedule. The individual who had done it previously retired last year, and the stipend was always a sticking point monetarily because the amount of money that was, amount of time that went into it. So when we're looking at the job description and the amount of time, we realized we just had to allocate additional funding to make it kind of worthwhile. So that's where the additional
$5,000.
$5,000 is coming from.
And is this a teacher or somebody in the building or?
Previously been a teacher. Now it's another staff member that's basically assumed the extra work.
Do they do that in the summer or how do they?
It's year round.
Okay.
Because they actually, they participate like in all the annual training with us. There's a lot of like lead time that has to get built to actually put like the scheduling together. Then you have to go through the selection process with the students, then you have to execute. There's a lot of work that's done like vacation weeks and over the summer, but it is kind of a year-round thing.
Okay.
The high school also, because they offer semesterized courses, you have to update the system at the end of the semester as well. So it is a challenge.
Okay.
But it's a stipend, it's not a standalone position. It's a stipend for someone to get on top of their duties, but they're separate and distinct duties.
Okay. Other question, Diana?
Yeah, so I'm curious, I know some of these curriculum, I'm coming back to my question around the curriculum coordinators. Some of these curriculum coordinators have been there for several years, some of them are newer. I'm curious if, where we stand in relation to our peers with how many positions we have that are similar to that. I know there might be called something slightly different in different districts. Again, my reason for asking is just thinking about, in a tight budget situation, if we are in a position at some point where we have to talk about staff serving students directly, I just want to have a sense on knowing the value that these folks add. I don't mean to critique the role, but I am just curious if, it feels like 11 is a lot for a district of our size, and I'm curious if that's a typical number.
Personally, I actually think if you did the research, even just about comparable communities, you would find that it's not. There are a lot of districts, even in the greater Merrimack Valley, that would actually have multiple of the same role. Like, we actually have a math coordinator that covers K-12. Other districts would have a math coordinator for elementary, kind of K-5, and then, say, a high school 6 to 12. So we basically have one per discipline. One of them you'll see actually has an offset to some of the Title I grant, but I obviously don't have that for you tonight, but I'm happy to pull the data from the other, say, comparable districts and even like the DESI reports to show you kind of how we stack up against other districts.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it is a broader question. It's not something I'm proposing that be shifted this year. It was more, it is a hard line to find if you look on another district's materials without combing through their recent proposed budgets, so, thank you.
I will tell you, just having done this for a long time, other districts don't actually list their budgets kind of this way and to this level of detail.
Right.
But we do, we are very transparent with our budget. Everything crosswalks to the staff salary book. Most other districts aren't even going to give you the list of positions. So what I have to do when I want to actually see that analysis, DESI's DART system allows you to go in and actually look at FTEs. You do have to be very careful, though, because sometimes people will categorize some of these FTEs as like administrative. Sometimes they're categorized as teaching. So you have to kind of go through
Right.
and make sure that you're actually comparing kind of apples to apples. But when I have some downtime, I don't mind doing that for you and taking a look at the our comparable districts, even just to give you a sense of what other districts our size have.
Yeah, I'm thinking less about this immediate budget and more about long-term implications if we have very, very difficult decisions to make, say with loss of federal funds or other things that may come.
Any other questions on this page? All right.
Okay. I make a motion to approve item number 2110, curriculum directors, in the amount of $1,431,515 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Okay. Diana?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, page 20, curriculum directors, special education. Any questions on this one?
Yeah, I had a question here. On the chairperson, there is a breakdown there too, right? It's more than one chairperson.
Sorry, what is that?
Special education administrative chairperson?
There's four of them.
There's four.
There's four.
So it says
Sorry?
4.0 right now.
4.0.
It says
Oh, it's-
FPE is
okay,
4.0.
yeah,
So four
4.0.
people.
Oh, it's one really well
It
paid.
states right there. Thank you. I appreciate
One very
that.
busy person, if that was the case.
I certainly,
There's a lot of IEP meetings to go.
yeah, it does have it.
Right.
I was going, wow, that person is really well paid.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions on this page?
Quick one. Do we have a chairperson who does out of districts?
So that's the Assistant Director of Student Services.
That's part of her role?
That's part of her role.
Okay.
So that was actually, and again, that's kind of another example. Oftentimes, districts will have a totally separate dedicated person to that. We kind of combine those duties with also someone who kind of serves as an extra assistant. It's, ironically, they're both names are Amy, but Amy Reese and Amy Matson. But Amy Matson is termed the Assistant Director, but the vast majority of her work is being the out-of-district coordinator and serving as a liaison for other out-of-district schools.
Anything else on this page? All right, I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to approve item number 2110, curriculum director, special education, in the amount of $1,058,368 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Okay, Diana?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye. All right, page 21, school leadership.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Can we ask Dr. Parksley before we talk about him? No, I'm just kidding. It's the principal section, sorry.
Any?
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
I actually do have a question. I think I know the answer to this, but I want to confirm that I'm correct. I see that the proposal is talking about reducing the copy center clerk, as we've heard tonight. Where is the one that will remain? Is that at the high school? Because I see it's being reduced from 2 to 1.
No, so, and again, a lot of people didn't know this either, and I had this question come up from staff, but we don't have any copy clerks at the elementary level at all.
Right.
So none of the elementary schools have them. The high school does not have a copy clerk. They house the RICO Center, so the RICO Center there is the one that makes the copies. So our 2 copy clerks that still remain, and again, this may predate me. I've been here for 10 years. We didn't have any copy clerks at the elementary before. I've only known the 2 at the middle school. But we have one at McCarthy and one at Parker.
So I guess then that begs the question for me. I'm thinking of, equity. I I guess I'm just curious, what's the justification for having one at Parker, not having one continue at McCarthy? And, you know, historically not having one at the elementary level. I guess I'm just curious why one is remaining, the other is not, like why that shift is happening. It feels like a half move.
Yeah, no, I think this is a move that's really building-based. And so when I work with the individual principals or even like departments around budget needs and wants and requests and things like that, they obviously can only influence their direct school. And in my conversations with Jeff at McCarthy, and then even, again, it was ironic, one of the speakers brought it up, but I have talked to the union leadership team about this and the desire to have an additional supervisor of students. Because, again, we have now merged all the 7th and 8th grade students in the district, about 813 to 14-year-olds, which, you know, can from time to time be a challenge as far as just keeping an eye on everyone. They really think having a second supervisor of students would be important. Again, student-facing, that would be someone that would interact very closely with the kids and the staff in the building. And the recommendation from the McCarthy, because again, we weren't in a situation to just be adding positions, was if we want to do something, what could we possibly do to help offset the cost of that? So the rationale was the copy clerk position, certainly it's a convenience. I'm not saying it's not, and I even emailed that to the effect, and the individual in the role is excellent. Everyone seems to like the individual. It's not a thing about the individual. We do have some redundancy with regard to photocopying in the district. It's certainly, again, a convenience to have the person at both schools, but even just standing alone at McCarthy. We do, in the district, have a copy center at the high school that anyone K-12 in the district and teachers at McCarthy do currently utilize. You just email your job to the high school, the RICO Center runs it, and they send it over through interoffice mail, and it appears in your mailbox at the school. You do have to, you know, think and kind of pre-plan a couple days in advance for something like that to happen. It's not just last minute, but that ability to still have it be copied and your job sent to you exists. Bill also, a couple of years ago, Bill Technology, when we were putting the new photocopiers in all the schools, we have the technology now where, like, even I can send a job to the printer, and I walk by with my badge, and I swipe my badge, and it just prints the job for me. So I don't even have to necessarily stand at the machine. I can just do that. It recognizes me, and it gets it for me. I think this was something when I was talking to Dr. Parks about the recommendation and really feeling like that supervisor students would be a welcomed addition to the school was worth the trade-off of not having the convenience of the copy person directly in the building. Again, not removing copying. We have teachers that make their own copies now. We can utilize the copier with the swipe, and we can even send jobs to the RICO Center. So copying can still get done, but to have an extra body full-time with the kids seemed to be the priority. In addition to that, another piece to fund it, because it's not just a one-for-one, it actually costs more to have the supervisor students and the copy clerk, or even the cafeteria, the lunch and recess aide. But the trade-off there is it's actually not down a body in the cafeteria, because the supervisor students would be in the cafeteria during lunchtime, also supervising the students, whether they're at lunch or recess. So the same FTE headcount is going to help. So I actually liked that as part of the recommendation. And I was supportive of the recommendation, again, because I think this does provide a service that's needed at the school. And again, I think there was a lot of thought that went into it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to convince me about the value of the supervisor students. Totally see why that's valuable. And I can totally see the value of listening to the recommendations of the building leaders about, you know, the needs and priorities and funds. My concern is specifically from an equity lens. I understand school by school mindset, but it feels like if the copy center clerks in an ideal world are available to, let's say, all of our secondary level staff, to have someone to support with that part of the photocopying, which is particularly when you're serving that many students. I can see the argument for not having that position in a year where things are physically tight and we're trying to make space for priority items in the budget. What I struggle with is seeing why we would retain that position at Parker and not at McCarthy. I don't necessarily think because we need to add a supervisor of students at McCarthy, that means that then McCarthy has to have less support than Parker does in terms of the kind of administrative support that a copy clerk provides. I wonder, is there any thought or consideration to having a person split their time or I don't know. I don't, maybe I'm the only one who sees this issue, but I feel a little concerned that something like this position it feels a little arbitrary that only one school is given this.
I do hear what you're saying. I think the other argument, though, if you ask Parker, would be, well, we didn't make the recommendation. We're not asking right now for an extra supervisor of students.
Right.
You know, why should we have to give up our copy clerk if that happened to be a priority for
Sure.
them? They may have recommended it and said, you know, I'd like to consider trading that for something else as well. I guess that's why I don't think it's just a one-for-one type thing.
Yeah.
It was a little bit situational to the school and the needs of that particular school at that particular time. Susan,
I do just want to kind of follow up, and I'm sure this is not going to be a well-taken or popular opinion, but I almost wonder, just for parity, I mean, it does seem to me that we're going to run into some problems when Parker still has the copy clerk. And if we're saying that all the other levels are able to do without a copy clerk, might it be prudent to eliminate all of the copy clerks? I said, I know that's not popular opinion, but it seems like it's only 2 grades or getting one. I don't know how fair that is.
When I hear what you're saying, from my lens, I work on these individually with like schools and the resources that are allocated to those particular schools. And Parker didn't have like a recommendation for a switch. Not to say a year from now they wouldn't. You know, there might be something that comes up at Parker a year from now that's more pressing for them. They might need an extra teaching support, or they might need what if they needed an extra supervisor of students? That might be something that they then recommended. I just, I guess my look at this equity-wise was, it was managing funds within the building and allowing a building to reallocate resources to best meet their student needs. I didn't want to necessarily have McCarthy's decision impact Parker, you know, but I get what you're saying.
Now, as far as the individual, will this individual have an opportunity to find another job within the district, or, I mean?
Yeah, so I mean, and again, this also does come into play, and we'll talk about this in other positions as well. This, again, had nothing to do with the individual. Everyone at the school likes the individual. They do a very good job. Whenever you have a reduction in force, which ultimately this would be, you look to the person in the prior job that they had, and do they have any kind of fallback rights? So this particular person was previously employed by us in a different capacity. So they're going to have fallback rights to go back to their former job, which was technically being a luncheon recess aide. Whether there's an opening at McCarthy or there'd be an opening somewhere else in the district, they're going to be able to fall back to the job that they previously had. They're also going to be able to avail themselves to apply for any other job that we have open in the district. This particular position's within the support staff union, and, you know, they may actually, if they're interested, find like a paraprofessional job to be more aligned with the kind of the workday or even the work that they like to do. And we have plenty of paraprofessional jobs that are open. So contractually, the person's going to fall back to the job that they previously had by contract. If they then ultimately decide they want to apply for something else in the district, by all accounts, they're a good employee, and they'd have a very good shot of getting something if they applied and went through that process.
So one of the things that I think is, I can see at a middle school level versus at an elementary school level, is you're dealing with a much bigger building. You're dealing with a lot more students and a lot more teachers at each one of these middle schools versus at the elementary school. It's going to be much easier for a person to go to a copy machine, make a bunch of copies, and return to their classroom at any one of our elementary schools versus doing that quickly at the middle school. No question about it. So the question I think then becomes, there's got to be a reason why the copy clerks were there in the first place. They're saving something. They're doing something, and they're doing something obviously valuable to quite a few people because they've come and they've spoken up about it. There's no question about that, I think.
I will say this, it's a convenience you don't
It's a
find
huge.
pretty much anywhere else that I know of. I've taught for 37 years and nobody ever made a copy for me. And I teach 5 classes and I teach in a huge building. You know, it is a convenience you don't find
Yes.
very often.
And I'm going to say this because in my own profession and in my own world, this is also a convenience that we've had to do away with because, and basically everybody does their own copying and their own thing. But there's got to be a reason why it was retained at the middle school level, never done at the elementary, and has gone to some copy center that you have now at the high school. Are there people who staff that copy center?
Yeah, again, this predates me, but there is an individual, and basically we contract with Rico to provide the person and the machines, and that's a district-wide service. So like anyone in the district, the teachers at McCarthy, the teachers at Parker, the teachers at the elementary schools, send jobs to the high school. They run the jobs and they deliver them, they get delivered through the courier service out to the schools. So that, you just have to kind of plan a couple days
Okay.
in advance for that to happen. But they have the ability, anyone in the district, I can send a job to the copy center if I want to and have them do it for me, and it would get sent over here to central office.
Okay.
So that does exist.
So that delivery service is daily, or what happens
Yeah,
with
no,
that?
there's a courier every day that goes around the school and like delivers mail and things like that. It's a timing thing of like when you send your job to the center, and does it go, if you send it at the very end of the day, then it might not get done until the first thing in the morning. If you miss the courier that day, then it's gonna come the next day. But, if you're planning a few days in advance, or even like some of these lessons where if you need packets of information for something, and you can send them a month in advance. We have teachers that do that. We have teachers this spring that'll send all their jobs to the copy center over the summer so that they get done, and then they're in their classrooms when they come back to school in September. So you can access sorry, Susan, I'm sorry.
And they mentioned some things like vocabulary word cards. Some of the advantages to using Ryco is you can get things printed on cardstock there that you can't do within your own school. So there are a lot of advantages to using it. The turnaround time is the part that makes it a little trickier because you have to think about it to put the order in and that they can get it done and then get it back to you.
Okay.
But it's every school, it's been in existence. I used it.
Yeah, like I said, that was here when I was here.
Yeah.
Before I got here, and that's always existed at the high school, so I don't know the history. There may have been a copy clerk at the high school at one time. There may have been copy clerks at the elementary level at one time that because of budget cuts went away.
time ago.
I truly don't know. Just since I've been here, there's been the Rico Center at the high school that all staff can access. There's been the 2 copy clerks at the middle schools, and there has been no copy clerk at the elementary.
Now, because McCarthy won't have a copy clerk and they are making their own copies, has there been some thought of when we look at the copiers of adding another machine or two to their school so that they have more access to the equipment to change this?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to say that we can't. They have copies over there now. We would actually have to just take a look at the copy clerk that's over there now, like where they're located. They may not be located in a convenience place for the teachers, just because they happen to be in the copy center for the copy clerk. So we could look to like realign or reapportion
Yeah,
them.
so that it makes it easier
the
so that people have
machines
better
around.
access.
And they would still have access to the Rico Center. So if they did want to send something, they could still do that. But I don't know, do you happen to know off the top of your head how many, of course you do, how
I
many
just
we
looked it
have?
up. Right now, there's 4 at McCarthy. And
It's a pretty large building.
these are the big Rico ones, I think. So these are copiers and printers. In addition, Bill Silver does have some, which aren't on my list of the 30 Rico copiers, does have little printers around the school too. But for the big copying, there's 4.
Was pretty good for
that
I think we
size
have 3
school?
in our building, and our building's much bigger than that.
When I was,
I thought I had 2. That said, I still feel like it's going to be interpreted by the staff as a special perk for teachers at Parker only. That's my concern with it.
yeah, but the schools you said made their own priority lists, right? It's in school spending. So they can, if they feel like they were left out, they can yell at Dr. Parks.
Well, it's the principals who do
Yeah,
it.
the
The
principals.
teachers may
Yeah.
not be totally aware of it yet.
Well, if the principal's making their budget decisions within their school, I don't think it's any of us are gonna, I don't know, we're having a debate about it, but.
Well, the decisions aren't unilaterally made by the principals in the school, is that correct? I mean, at the end of the day, we still have.
Well,
to
generally,
approve
we let them
budget
manage
line
their
by
own
budget
buildings.
Right, I mean, the building admin of the building bring the recommendations forward.
Yeah.
They would be working with, like, if it was a special ed type issue, they'd be working with the special ed staff.
Right.
They might work with the teams over there that they have supporting them. But ultimately, they make decisions or recommendations to me to say how they can most efficiently operate their schools and how they can best provide the support for their staff and students that they can. And this was a recommendation that came from, again, McCarthy. Again, Parker didn't have something to recommend that this would have come into play. It's not to say that it wouldn't happen again. If things get tough and they have another need, this could come up for them as well. So this could be a short-lived inequity if it's viewed in that way in some places. But I didn't go after Parker to say you have to get rid of yours because we weren't giving them anything, or they weren't looking to trade anything. This was really specific towards McCarthy. And yes, it's a loss of a copy clerk, but it's a gain of a supervisor of students who's working with the admin staff, the teaching staff, and the kids to help with supervision of the school, which is just a different need for 7th and 8th graders than it was for 5th and 6th graders.
I understand the supervisory role completely. Just thinking, and I haven't found a particular place in the budget that would replace that 21,162 to add the copy clerk back to McCarthy.
That's not really what I'm advocating for. I'm just, I don't know, something about it just feels.
It is, but changing that right now with that consultation with the principal at Parker.
Yeah, the option is to get rid of the copy clerk at Parker to make it equitable. That's not, we're not want to do that. And again, they're not getting supervisor of students, so now it's inequitable in that part. So this is kind of what McCarthy wanted, Parker didn't want it. I think this.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering if, and maybe this goes beyond the budget, but I'm just wondering if there could be a way to think about that role that is at Parker. Is there a way that, educators could, from McCarthy, could have access to some of that support too, if needed in certain situations? I understand they're physically not in the same building. It's not a whole lot of an advantage over that versus the high school to get to another building, but I don't know, just, this may not be like a budget question. It's more just like, I'd love to see, I guess, monitor how it goes this year and see where the needs change.
Any other questions on school leadership? All right, we'll take a motion.
I make a motion to approve item number 2210, school leadership, in the amount of $3,240,957 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Diana?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye. All right, page 22, classroom teachers. Any questions?
I see that there are 3 positions that have been, it looks like dropped, or I just wanted some understanding. It looks like under mathematics, science, and then in technology, they added 2 positions, so I just wanted to put that.
It's just a reclassification of existing positions.
Okay.
So we happen to have a math teacher last spring retire. Ironically, it was the person who did the scheduling, retire. And they taught a couple of math and some tech ed classes. And then we had another person who was kind of a science teacher that was also doing more tech ed classes than science classes. So for licensure and things like that, we basically just recategorized the position, but the same FTEs. It's just different
Sort of
title.
leaning one way or the other within the STEM umbrella, changing the classification.
Yeah, between like the courses they're actually
Yeah.
teaching, just align more to be tech ed courses as opposed to math and science courses.
Okay. Thank you. I thought it was probably something like that.
The only other thing I want to point out here, if I can, the third line down is the salary reserve for COLA changes, that 1 point, close to 6 million. That's the set aside we have for the negotiations I mentioned earlier. This is where that appears.
Okay. Other questions? On the art, middle school art, you dropped from a 10.6 to a 10.4, any?
Yeah, so this was actually just so we're currently at the current number now on the art. We're currently at 10.4 in the current year. This just continues that. 2 years ago, we had an art position that I want to say was like 0.6 at Parker and do you remember 0.2 maybe at McCarthy? And we had a resignation from McCarthy. When we ended up filling that job, we filled it with a full-time person instead of a kind of two part-time people. But there ended up being an extra .2 that wasn't allocated. It wasn't necessary at Parker because they're only running specials the first 2 periods of the day. So Parker only needs a .4. There's no other point of the day where they need the extra .2. So like today, no art teachers losing any time. We only have a 10.4. We just didn't pick up the extra .2 from FTE from 2 years ago.
Okay. All right, other questions? Okay.
I make a motion to approve item number 2300 in the amount of 2300 through 2305 classroom teachers, regular education, in the amount of 27,801,845, as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Okay.
Aye.
Susan, John?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, yeah. All right, guys are way ahead of me. All right, 23 teacher specialists, regular education. Questions on this one?
This is
Yeah.
This is a reading teacher, yeah.
Could you tell me which page, or does anybody know which page these are on in the detailed budget?
The positions themselves?
The reading teachers specifically. Okay, I see.
Page
It's the
50
bottom of 54.
54.
Yeah. So I'm curious, I saw a little bit of this via email, but I guess I would love a little bit more of a narrative around the current reading teachers. You know, I'm looking that were allocated to McCarthy. Most of the other schools have 2 allocated reading teachers. The high school, it looks like, is the only one with 1.
Correct.
Am I correct there?
Correct.
I guess I'm curious what impact this would have on the school's ability to provide service. How many students would continue to be served? How many students would not be able to be served with this reduction?
So what happens, I did email the group on this. I responded to a couple of the teacher inquiries. I haven't gotten to every single one. A couple came in late this afternoon. But basically, we do have 2 reading teachers at each of the 4 elementary schools, and we currently have 2 at Parker, 2 at McCarthy, and only 1 at the high school. As you progressively get up in scheduling, it is more of a challenge to actually schedule reading, which is a general ed service. And again, the high school has 4 grade levels. They only have 1 teacher. We have the 2 at McCarthy. Of the 2 teachers, each of them teach 2 sections of 7th grade, or 2 7th grade cohorts, 2 8th grade cohorts, and then they teach an elective, a reading elective, but it's not literacy support. Looking at the numbers, they're serving a little over 50 students, and this, again, is based on a myriad of different factors. So the different reading scores, teacher recommendation, things along those lines. These are general ed students who are recommended for some additional reading support. They have to opt in, so the parents have to say, yes, we want them to receive that service. And taking a look at the 2 teachers we currently have, one happens to be retiring at the end of this year, which also, when we were making the recommendation, not that we would make it solely on a kind of a attrition, so that it's not affecting an individual, but this just happened to be that case. The second teacher at the school currently has a caseload of 17 students. So they have 4 classes. One class has 5 students, and then there's a class with 4, a class with 4, and a class with 4. So what the recommendation was we feel like next year we'll actually be able to still provide services to about the same number of students, about the 50 students, not changing the criteria, using the exact same criteria that was in place this year and next year, offering likely 5 sections of service by the one individual, with about 10 kids per class. The first individual, who happens to be retiring, in their 4 sections, they currently have 9, 11, 10, and 7, which is a little bit more than the norm that you would see. This other one is just very low subscribed. So what we envision is the new person, or this person next year, likely would have 2 7th grade, definitely would have 2 8th, And then we'd have to see the numbers, because the kids are gonna change every year to see who actually under the criteria. And again, the current criteria, not watering down or weakening the criteria, next year to be able to service about those 50 kids. So service level wise, we do believe one teacher will be able to accomplish the same that's being accomplished this year. Again, this is not a cutting of a position. No one's looking to cut a reading position. This just happens to be a regular ed reading position. And we have the need, a page, I may as well talk about it now, it's a page later in special education. 3 years ago, we invested in and started a language-based program at Parker. This is when the schools were together. So we had a specific cohort of students who really, in their IEPs, so these are special education students, needed specialized reading support. So we added a teacher and some paraprofessional support in 5th grade. We had a cohort of 6 or 7 students at the time. It was very successful. The next year, that group moved up, and obviously we had to backfill, so we had to add a teacher in 6th. Last year, we added a teacher in 7th, and this year, we need to close the loop and actually add a teacher in 8th grade to support these students as they go forward. So we actually have a need for a more special education reading literacy person as opposed to a regular education literacy reading person, and just want to shift the teacher within the school. But it appears in 2 different categories in the budget. One's regular ed, one's sped, so I can't just make that shift on our own. So that's really the rationale.
Right, I get that rationale. I was just curious about the concrete numbers of students being served. So you're saying right about 50 are being served now, and in theory, the new, with, not including the elective, and then in theory, with the shift, slightly larger class sizes. I'm curious, why are the class sizes so different between the 2 teachers this year? Or like, was there a distinction between their caseloads? How were they
I'm gonna
determined?
guess it has to do with scheduling, because again, this is scheduled as like a class, as
Right.
opposed to like special education, you can actually schedule as a service. But this actually falls within a class time, as well as the teaming at the school. Sometimes one team is larger than another team, and these teachers, where they're teaching 7th and 8th grade, I'm gonna guess their schedules are aligned to a particular team. So if one particular team's numbers are lower, they probably have the lower numbers. That is something I know the school looks at and is looking at for next year, a way to kind of level out the numbers a little bit among teams so that it's more consistent.
Yeah, or maybe that'll change if there's one, but then in terms of the language-based program, I know there were some folks who reached out, talked about, well, could one person do a 7th and 8th grade combined course? I do know a little bit about this. I'm guessing the concern there is that class size for that population and that kind of course is typically kept to under 10 students. Is that correct?
No, that just happens to be, so it's not a separate course. So, and that's, I think, some of the misnomers among even some of the emails we received from teachers.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to dig
It's
into.
it's not a course. The language-based teacher would work with a cohort of students. So the cohort of students would be in the same class, but they almost co-teach. So they
It's a
need to
co-taught.
basically support the students in each of their core areas. So they need to move from English to maybe math to potentially science, social studies. So they're going to be on more of a student schedule, and they're going to be tied to, say, 7th grade or 8th grade. Those 2 schedules don't work at the same time.
Right.
One teacher couldn't be helping out 7th grade at the same time they're helping out the 8th grade cohort. It just wouldn't line up. So in 5th grade, again, we had the designated person. We had to add one for 6th. We had to add one for 7th.
Right.
And then we would have one for 8th.
Okay, so, yeah, because the comments I was reading from educators led me to believe it was like a sub-separate program or something like that, or a pullout, so you're saying
Yeah,
it's.
not a separate program. I would
push
think
in,
of it more of as a push-in, as a support. Another person certainly might pull the kids to the side and do some extra
Sure.
work with them. But they need to be able to go to each of the core areas, not just pull out or be available for one area.
Okay, thank you, that's a helpful clarification.
Now, the other item on this page, the tutoring, I know one of the places we're reducing is we currently budget for 18, and we're gonna drop that to 6.
Right.
Of the 18 that we have, how many do we actually fill right now? And so are we talking about, well, we have 8, we gotta get rid of 2 people, or where are we at?
Let me give you a global. So one of the reasons we looked at this, obviously, is the 367-ish or 350 is about what we've been budgeting for each of the last 3 or 4 years. When COVID hit and since COVID hit, we have had a very difficult time hiring interventionists or even like tutors. They've just been very difficult to get. So if you look at our actuals for '23 and '24, we're under $100,000 in both years. Joanna could probably give us a sense of what the spend is going to be for this year, but we know we're not at full capacity. We also, in July, increased the rate for the tutors a little bit. So what this budget would do is actually fund 6 tutors at the new rate that we set for next year. And do you know how many we're actually at right now?
So we have, this only funds this is the local budget, so these are non-Title I schools. Plus the Title I funds and Title III, overall, we have 21 tutors. And I'm just trying to think, I'm quickly on my feet here, how many of those 21 are the local budget? And it's I want to say it's the 6, and I'm not trying to just perfectly match, but I think that had something to do with why we landed at the number we landed. But I can get back to you on that at exactly how many are non-Title I. So South Row, Center, the high school. I think that's it for non-Title I.
Okay. All right,
That's
so-
what this is funding,
so the-
and then the
so the
rest.
6 is appropriate to where we're at right now.
The 6 is definitely more in line
Right,
with
right,
what we're able
right.
to staff.
We'd like to have more.
I'd love to
Yeah,
have
right.
18, but we're more in line with being able to probably hire and retain 6.
Okay.
That's more probable than saying we're going to hire 18.
Right.
So
And this,
there was no sense in keeping extra money in the line if we couldn't fill them.
Yeah, that all makes sense.
Wait, I'm sorry.
no, and this is also, if the tutor worked every available hour, 18 hours a week for all 36 weeks. This is at full capacity, and
Okay. So it's an hourly position then?
it is
What's an hourly
part-time.
position?
Yep.
I just make a couple comments about some of these things we just talked about. In relation to the English language learner teacher, that's a special ed position. So the kids who are in that would have been designated a specific learning disability. Yes, as a language learning disability, is that true?
In the language-based classroom?
The language-based classroom?
Yes, they run an
right?
IEP for specific.
Okay,
yes.
that's what I thought. So the suggestion of combining those kids doesn't work because that's a very significant kind of disability that affects much more than reading. It affects their entire school day and their often executive functioning. So I would not at all recommend that we combine that
Well,
as
and it
someone
sounds
had
like if it's pushed
suggested.
in, you couldn't combine it.
to
But even if we could, those kids need a
To
significant
piggyback on it, the
support.
reason why the program's there is that otherwise they would have to be out
Out
of
of
district
district
placements. And so we're
placement, which is
actually
right.
saving
Yeah.
So
money
I just
in
want
that regard.
Right, so that's a reason why that couldn't be combined as one. And then if you take the reading, I think we've kind of got some information that, especially with that mid-year iReady, that made it look like kids were so far behind. I said, this is a talk I had with Dr. Hirsch recently about how the danger of reporting mid-year iReady is that it's based on end-of-the-year standards. So a lot of kids look like they're below grade level when they're just progressing toward it. But I think the class size that you're talking about, if they retained one reading specialist, these are not kids with special needs. These are general ed kids who get tier 2 support. So those class sizes don't sound too large once you take, you put all those kids in the different sections. The numbers you talked about didn't seem too large. As we already discussed, our ELL teacher at Center School has more students than any of those reading teachers, and she's just her at that one school. So not that it's ever ideal to cut teaching positions. I think this one is a trade-off that makes sense, that we need that special ed position. And the
It's
reading
not cutting,
is.
it's reallocating. It's kind of shifting it. to the other.
Sure, but in the end, one position's eliminated and one is added, even though it's the same number. I think it's just a given. We can't not have that special ed position, and the reading, well, maybe not the most ideal, sounds manageable.
Yeah, and this is certainly something that we're going to monitor over the course of next year. And and I've always done this, if we find something isn't working, I would come back to you. Or we'd figure out something mid-year if we had to. We could evaluate it the following year if we had to do something. But I do think, we're going to have to dig deep into some of these roles and just make sure that, again, like one of the, and no fault of their own, they're both doing a very good job. But, one has a case size closer to 10 on average, and the other is closer to, 4. So it's not unheard of to have, 10 in front of you. So if we had 5 sections of 10 going, I think that would be very similar to what we have in place this year. And I'm not saying to loosen the guidelines or loosen the parameters. It's the same parameters we have in place this year.
I think I'm satisfied with that explanation in terms of, this shifting of the position. I think also after listening today to the speakers, and after listening to the English department and so on, I personally would like to see in the coming years, if we can add positions, to actually add more reading assistants in the elementary level, so we don't get to the middle school and have these number of children who are not at reading level. That seems to be what, we would want to achieve long term. But that's another discussion, right?
Yeah, and just as another little note, like the students, and again, I don't have the list of students, but the students that they're referencing in some of these emails that are like 2 and 3 grade levels behind are very likely special education students, and they're on IEPs, and they're receiving services through a special education teacher. The ones that they're saying we're kind of behind grade level now are often, it's that mid-year data point that you were talking about, Susan. But this is data that we're going to look at the end of the year and see where all these kids are.
I do think it's worth continually monitoring where we are with, even tier 1, let alone tier 2 instruction. And the literacy side, I know the district is very focused on math, but I want to make sure this is not an area where we lose ground, certainly.
Okay.
Anything else on this page? Okay, we'll take a.
All ready?
Yep.
I make a motion to approve item number 2310, teacher specialist, regular education, $2,082,496, as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Diana?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, page 24, teacher specialist, special education. Questions on this one?
Just this is where you see the sped teacher get picked up.
Yeah. Just a question on the offset. How do you come up with the value for the offset, like the chips? Is it based on enrollment?
Joanna does that.
Okay. All right, Joanna, how do you come up with it?
It's based on how much we bring in for CHIPS revenue, and then what we're funding from there. So there's a social worker, and there's a teacher.
Okay.
So I don't want to go into deficit in every given year, so that's how we came up with the 115.
Okay.
Okay. I make a motion to approve item number 2310, teacher specialist, special education, in the amount of $8,668,938, as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Diana?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
And aye. Okay. All right, moving on, page 25, medical therapeutic services. Any questions on this? Hearing none?
I make a motion to approve item number 2320, medical therapeutic services, in the amount of $555,693, as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
All right, Diana? Susan?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye. All right, page 26, substitutes. Any questions?
When did we change those rates? We changed those last year, right?
2 years
Last
ago?
year.
Yeah.
Or was it last year?
Last year we did an update, yeah.
Diana, you had a question?
It's clarifying, making sure I'm correct in an assumption. So the budget for paras and secretaries, which I see is, that assumes fully staffed with paraprofessionals. In other words, that's not a change. I see 25 to 26. I assume our actuals are lower because I know we've had a lot of openings in our paraprofessional.
No, this is when,
This is for sub.
this is when if a paraprofessional is sick.
Subs.
and
Sorry.
you bring in a substitute paraprofessional.
Okay,
for
then
the
maybe
day.
I'm phrasing it backwards. But I guess what I'm wondering is, do we see these actuals come in higher when we have struggles with staffing, or is the difficulty staffing the substitutes? Like, where do we usually see
I
that?
think I know what you're saying.
Or do you,
Well,
or I guess what I'm wondering here is, when it says substitutes, paras, and secretaries, is this substitutes for the paras and
Yes.
secretaries?
Yeah.
Not when they act as subs?
Correct.
Okay.
This
Making
is
sure I
if,
understand that.
if the para is out sick and we're able to get a sub for the para.
Yeah.
We pay the sub out of this account. The para would likely be paid out of their regular salary account, assuming they have accruals.
Right. And I guess I'm wondering, is this a difficult one to staff? Do we typically have a pretty easy ability to find substitutes for the paraprofessional roles? I know we're always hiring for the
Yeah, it's a-
full-time, let alone.
It's a challenge,
Yeah.
because you're gonna fill your teaching jobs first.
Yeah.
And there are good days and there are bad days, but
Yeah.
sometimes we're scrambling to fill those, so you're gonna fill your para second. But when paras are filled, and you can kind of see the actual rates in '23 and '24.
Yeah.
The 152 is the number we've been budgeting for the last number of years, and we haven't hit that. We've been shy of the 152 in actuals. But it is still a little bit of a challenge.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this one? All right,
I make a motion to approve item number 2325, substitutes in the amount of $811,000 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Diana?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah. Hi. I have to ask anymore. All right, page 27, paraprofessionals. Any questions here?
Yeah, so I see it's a drop for the lunch and recess age from 52 to 53 full-time equivalents. I'm sorry, 52 to 51
Yeah.
full-time equivalents. Is that, I assume that's not one individual, or,
It is. Do you remember when we were gonna fund the supervisor students?
right, I understand that. I thought that was a number of people in part-time roles. There is a full-time role that does this?
Oh, no.
not even full-time.
It's not a full-time equivalent. We call them full position equivalents.
Okay,
So
that's a
an
clarification
FTE,
I
yeah.
didn't have.
So
in-
even if the person works 3 hours a day, there's, say, 51 people working 3 hours a day.
Got it.
So what this is doing is trading one of those lunch and recess aides, plus the copy clerk,
Yeah.
is offsetting the cost of the new supervisor.
So this works different than like the teaching positions where we're talking about .4s and.
Oh, yeah, this is
0.8s.
completely
So
different.
this
yeah.
is, when there's, it goes from 52 to 51, you mean 52 people to 51 people?
52 positions to 51 positions.
Right, okay.
You can look at it as bodies or people,
So we actually are only reducing one position,
one lunch and recess aide.
At McCarthy.
just one, okay. For some reason in my head, I thought it was more to offset.
Nope, just one.
Okay.
All right, other questions on this?
I make a motion to approve item number 2330, paraprofessionals, in the amount of $4,782,869 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second, wow.
Yeah, I watched
Aye.
your face, you kind of don't know. All right, Susan? John?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Hi. You just-
It took time for the thought to develop and like pop out.
All right, page 28, Library Media Center. Questions here? Just question, it's just only a slight reduction, but with the reduction in technology assistance, any idea why? It's not, the people haven't reduced, I didn't know whether.
No, but it's likely the actual person who was in a role left, and a new person coming in came in at a lower step,
Okay.
is likely what happened.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
I make a motion to approve item number 2340, Librarians Media Center, in the amount of $840,312 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Aye.
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 aye. Couldn't even ask people, okay.
Pretty good.
All right, 29, professional development. Any questions on this page?
Is this, so I see there's mentor lines at the top. I assume that's teacher mentors, teachers mentoring their peers. Underneath, the dues, conferences, speakers, workshops, that is for the entire staff, correct?
Entire district.
Right, not just the mentors, just making sure.
Oh, no, that's district-wide.
Any other questions on this page? All right,
I make a motion to approve item number 2357, professional development in the amount of $218,727 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, page 30, textbooks and instructional materials. Any questions on this one? My question, I just noticed the science one, the actual is 25, then the actual is 29, and the budget is 28. I mean, why does it bounce up and down? Is it like an every other year cycle for materials, or
Let me
it just
take a look at his
fluctuates quite
notes
a bit?
on that.
So,
Joanna can help you on the current year
Oh,
notes.
this is text.
This is text, yeah, but it just,
I can tell you, sometimes if you see an actual that's like significantly higher than what the actual budget numbers
Yeah.
are, is an account that we did a one-time expense out of.
Yeah.
So like an example is the textbook adoption line. You can see that, we're usually carrying about 125, but obviously in '23 it went up to 748.
Yeah.
That would be because you transferred money in from another line of the budget to be able to do a textbook adoption.
Yeah.
So that's why.
this one
so-
just bounced back again in 25, so it was
Well, yeah,
28,
no,
then it was 9,
25.
it was 28 again. and-
Right, but I bet the 25 wasn't the regular line item, but Joanna will have some data.
Yeah, and then it backed down to 9 again this year, that's why I say,
Oh,
that's what I'm
yeah.
saying, like, it's kind of like,
Yes. Why it's a jump.
Yeah.
I know what it is. It's the digital licenses for
Okay.
some of the textbooks.
so it's a 2-year license? Okay, I figured it had to be
Last
something
year.
biannual.
It looked like it was,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
It's a
just,
little,
okay,
gets a little crazy, but when the digital licenses come up, that's where.
all right, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, any other questions on this page?
No.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve item number 2415, textbooks and instructional materials in the amount of $473,099 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, page 31, instructional equipment. Any questions on this one? Take a motion.
I make a motion to approve item number 2420, instructional equipment in the amount of $192,900 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, page 32, general supplies. Any questions on this one? Okay. All right.
I make a motion to approve item number 2430, general supplies in the amount of $612,333 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Aye.
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 Well-oiled machine.
Yeah. 33, other instructional services, special education. Any questions here?
What is the contracted services special education line specifically?
So this is when, like if we have to do services for OT, PT, things that our own staff can't get to, evaluations, that's what Amy Reese uses this for.
So contracting externally for kind of miscellaneous
For
areas of
services
need.
that are in the IEP for the student,
Okay.
that we're not doing with an in-house staff person.
So because it's, based on different students' IEP needs, is that why it looks like the budget is higher than the actuals have historically been? Just like in case?
Well, no, she knows what services she needs to deliver. She just kind of kept it level funded from this year. She also has the grant that can also service this too, so she
Yeah.
has two sources of funding.
Okay.
Right, any other questions on this page? Okay.
Okay, I make a motion to approve item number 2440, other instructional services, special ed, in the amount of $215,000 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, 34, classroom instructional technology and software. Any questions there?
No.
My question is just the offset went up. Is that the cost of the computers are going up?
For the lease.
For the leases?
Yes.
Okay.
And the number may vary too, based on the enrollment of the grade.
Okay.
Good point.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay.
I make a motion to approve item numbers 2451 through 2455, classroom instructional technology and software in the amount of $805,000 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, page 35, guidance and psychological services. Any questions there? To note that we're now, Panorama we were paying for through grants, so now we're picking that up through the general budget.
Yes.
Are there other things that are gonna come offline from grants that we're gonna also have to pick up?
There's two more there, and that, we'll get to that.
Okay.
On the medical page, the services, contracted services for mental health.
Okay.
So the Cartwheel and Care Solace,
Okay. All right, so those are the ones.
those, correct.
Okay.
And then all the ESSER grants are done, so there's no more after
Right,
this.
I knew we'd finally come to the end.
Yep.
Okay. All right, other questions on this page? All right,
I make a motion to approve item numbers 2710 through 2800, guidance and psychological services in the amount of $3,201,024 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
aye, aye. That's your bedtime, isn't it, John? All right, page 36, medical and health services. Questions?
Mute.
So were we paying for Care Solis before this year, or
So-
why'd it go down a little bit too?
Well, in the fiscal '25 budget, and we're not gonna spend that 58,883.
Okay,
It'll be less than that because ESSER paid for some of it. So
Okay.
it's
so this is
brought down.
picking it up for next year, okay.
That's right.
All right, any other questions on this one?
I make a motion to approve item number 3200, medical and health services in the amount of $980,041 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Hey, page 37? Yeah, 37, transportation. Questions on this one?
I actually do. Software, is that the software used to determine bus routes?
Yes.
Exactly.
Would it come under the oversight of the contracted company or us to pay for the software that would support the navigation of the bus drivers? For example, there's a few routes that perpetually have substitute bus drivers because they can't staff them. Is there any way that does it fall under us or under the company to provide them with, a map software or something that will help them actually find their route and navigate it effectively? I know it's been an issue with a couple of the schools having one or two of the bus routes perpetually late because the drivers don't know the routes.
Yeah, if it's not in the contract and we wanted to add something, the cost would fall on us. It's something we certainly could look at, any time, but certainly like those kind of enhancements, we would typically look at when we're going out to bid for a new contract, because we would build that
Right.
into the bid. This could be a conversation for another day if you want, just because we could talk a little bit about like the way the buses are routed, that the substitute drivers, they should have printed route sheets, but they don't have like digital route sheets.
Right,
that
I
you're
know they have
referring to.
printed route sheets, but
Yeah.
from what I have been hearing, that can prove to be quite a challenge. I remember my MapQuest days, and it was definitely more dangerous to have me driving with a bunch of sheets of paper telling me where to go than having a phone.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the quick answer to your first question is if it was something we wanted to add, we'd have to pay for it. But
Right.
we could talk at a future meeting, just in general about that if you'd like.
Yeah, it's not something I need to disrupt tonight, but thank you.
And then we've lost 2 crossing guards?
We haven't had them.
No, I know.
So it's not a significant cost savings
right.
on this one, but we have a crossing guard in front of McCarthy Middle School.
Yeah.
And then historically, there had been a crossing guard position at least. No one's ever occupied it since I've known, out in front of the high school, kind of crossing over, what's the road in front of the high school that leads to Parker?
That's Richardson.
Richardson Road?
No, the one at the driveway.
That's Richardson.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
How many years have you been here?
That's what
Sorry,
happened.
I guess it's Richardson Road.
My part of town, I know.
There was another one somewhere, but we haven't been utilizing them. So we only have the one in front of McCarthy. So we just were doing kind of a true-up, because literally we're combing the budget for dollars when we can. And there was no sense in carrying the 3 if we didn't have to. So again, minor financial savings, but just more of a cleanup.
So do we still do have one at McCarthy?
Yeah, one of the staff, well, it's not a separate person. One of our staff members gets a stipend
okay,
to go
sure,
out and do the crossing guard duties, yeah.
I can't see it functioning without it.
Yeah, that's a busy road.
It's horrendous.
Well, that's, we get a lot of kids that come right from across the
Oh,
street.
yes, absolutely.
Right. This is more of a global question. Where are we in our contracts with the bus companies?
Yeah, that's.
What year are we in, what are?
So for the big yellow bus, we are in year 3, and we sent the request to extend to year 4, and they received it, so we were early, it was due March 1st. And then for the special ed out of district, we are in year 2 right now, and so then we will go into year 3, and then in year 3, we have the option to extend to year 4 and 5.
All right, great.
So was there a reason that we chose to extend rather than go out to bid?
Yes, because we can see what, the business managers all share what the rate per bus is. And when you take a look at that, what's currently in our contract is more favorable than what new bids are coming in at.
Got it.
And it's the least competitive area I've ever seen
is,
in my
right.
life.
Only
This is incredible.
One big player, really, I mean, to be honest.
It's like Google, no, sorry. Okay. I make a motion to approve item number 3,300, transportation, in the amount of $5,042,638 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, 38, food services. Any questions?
No.
This is where we have the shift from general budget to,
Yeah. As a cost savings to the local budget, basically shifting the director salary off of the local budget onto the revolving fund.
and there's
So
plenty
we're
of
just showing that
money in the revolving fund.
at the
to
time
cover
being,
that.
yeah.
Okay, great. All right,
I make a motion to approve item number 3,400, food services, in the amount of $25,000 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Aye.
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 aye. 39, athletic department. Any questions on this? My question was on coaches' stipends. Do they, any increase there going to be tied into any sort of contractual increases, or
All of it.
so similar to those other positions? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we would need to allocate money from the set aside for
Yeah.
COLA for that as well.
Okay.
But typically, when you're negotiating, you have Schedule A is the general salaries, and all the appendices would get a similar cost of living increase.
Okay. Great. All right, any other questions on this particular?
I make a motion to approve item number 3510, athletic department, in the amount of $898,939 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye, 5-0. Page 40 is student activities. Questions?
Could you further explain, I saw the note, but I don't fully understand what that student activity advisors line is fully Is that just paying the stipends of the teachers?
Yeah.
Okay.
So in our contract, at
Right.
the very end, like one of the appendices, I forget which number it is or which letter it is, but there's like a listing at McCarthy and Parker and the high
Right.
school of all the different clubs that we, so that's an allocation to pay for the club stipends. And then it's supplemented by an activity fee, which is $50 per student. So we take cash in from kids, local budgets providing a portion of it, and together that's how we pay for the advisors.
Okay. I'm probably not going to be very popular with my fellow parents for saying this, but when is the last time that we've determined the amount of the activity fees or adjusted them?
We actually,
About it
4 years ago?
yeah, we actually brought it down a couple of years ago because we were actually just finding and anecdotally hearing that it was a barrier to participation. And for the kids to already be at school in the afternoon for 3 days a week, to be able to stay for 1 extra hour, whether they're doing enrichment or they're doing activity, and then they can jump on the late bus to go home. We didn't want to have any barriers in place to do that. So that's something we certainly, over the course of this next year, can survey communities and figure out what they charge. At the time, when we had done that, most schools were actually charging activity fees for like sports for the high school level, but they weren't charging activity fees for middle school. So that was also one of the impetus for us to lower it. But we can do some research on that too.
I'm not necessarily advocating for raising it. I would be paying it if we were, but I was thinking, in the context of, tough budget times, it's worth looking at the very few avenues we have for fees. And I have also heard from time to time from parents things like, well, I don't need to enroll in community education programming for childcare after school for my kid because I just pay $50 and they get to stay an extra hour and that's all I need. They get home at 4:15. And so when I hear parents talking about it as essentially a replacement for what is a more expensive childcare program, that's when I start thinking about, is there a way to rethink how we do fees? And that would be fair and still not be a barrier for students that need that very low cost option, but to have it not be something that was so low that it didn't justify charging. I don't know if that makes any sense, but.
If it helps. At the elementary level, we don't have student activity
Right.
fees and things like that. So any of the kids who are staying at the elementary programs are paying like the full
Right.
childcare. We only offer childcare at Parker for grade 5, 6 students.
Right.
And it's not a significant number of students, so I would,
I'm just wondering if that would go up if we were charging more for the fees. Like,
I just don't know if kids are really into it for just the 1 extra hour, 3 days a week, because we can look into it. But I would think that most kids would need more structured daycare, like say 5 days a week and even like later in the afternoon. But I would just hate to have it be something that stops another kid from
I
going.
agree.
If it got in the way, but that's something we can look at too.
No, I agree. It's just, I'm just trying to think long-term critically about what we are doing.
Any other questions on this page?
I make a motion to approve item number 3520, other student activities, in the amount of $199,940, as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye, 5-0. All right, 41, school security. Any questions on this one?
This is where we see the additional supervisor of students, right? Yep.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Okay, I make a motion to approve item number 3600, school security, in the amount of $275,661, as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, 42, custodial services. Questions? I just had a question. I noticed that the contractual services didn't change at all. How, I would assume they would go up since we're contracting with.
Well, we're going out, our RFP gets advertised Monday. Now, this is for, so it could, but it's a pretty competitive process, so we'll see. And then, if it comes in higher, we'll have to come back with a budget transfer recommendation, from an, maybe down in the general maintenance category or supplies or something up to there, we'd have to figure it out. But
So we're going out to bid for these services?
it's an RFP, yep.
Yeah, current contract ends in June.
Okay,
Yep,
okay.
yeah.
You're hoping to kind of keep the number about the same?
Hoping,
Hoping, okay.
yep.
And no snow next year.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, any other questions on this page? Okay.
I make a motion to approve item number 4110, 4210 through 4230, custodial services in the amount of $2,139,637 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, heating and building utility services. Maria wants to increase this because
You and me both. I'm like,
You guys really cold?
I am
I
not
saw
cold.
him on the coat.
this.
I am never. And I was like,
Sharon, same thing over there.
I'm not cold right now.
I am so hot in here right now.
I'm a little hot, too, yeah.
I'm with you.
I might have too.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I have my trusty vest.
yeah, maybe.
All right,
Should have brought mine.
so any questions on this page?
Yeah, but there's something we can do about it. What are we gonna do about it?
All right.
What are we gonna do is right.
I
Okay?
think, yeah.
I make a motion to approve item numbers 4120 through 4130, heating of buildings and utility services in the amount of $1,485,100 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, almost there. 44 employee separation costs. Questions? My question is be, how come the big drop, but we have less people retiring this year?
7.
Oh, just 7? Oh.
It really just depends annually.
Yeah,
on
yeah,
how
no,
many
I didn't
people
know.
retire.
Okay.
And
Well, that's good.
It's a fixed cost
Less
because.
to hire, too.
Good.
people
It's
tell
7
us, yes.
teachers.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
So,
There's a few
for
support staff.
fiscal year '25, we just budgeted for way more than we ended up needing. Is that what you're saying?
No?
No, we had way more retirements. We had, this is actually just, we budget the actual number that we're gonna have to pay out to the retiring employees. We just had more people separating from us last year than this coming year.
Okay, all right.
Substantially less.
It's a big drop, but that's great, yeah.
I make a motion to approve item number 5150, employee separation costs in the amount of $98,606 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, 45 civic activities.
What?
No, we have
You
to-
can skip.
We don't, yeah, we don't have to do anything there, there's no money out. So, all right, 46 tuitions, questions here. Just, I guess just, I know one of the things that was in our favor in terms of having to deal with was that circuit breaker, where the numbers ended up being better this year than we, what, can you just kind of go through how that works and?
So, and I also try to present this in the quarterly updates too, because it's an important component of how special ed tuitions are funded. So we get reimbursed from circuit breaker every year based on the claim we file. And that number can be, you don't know what the number is going to be. The best it can be is 75% reimbursement plus some transportation. That's what it was. We were at 75, and then transportation, I can't remember the percentage off the top of my head. You're allowed to carry over 1 year's worth of revenue. So you're always a year in arrears. So the offset number is known. It's not a mystery for us because we're at the cap. So for next year, because we got more funds a year ago, we are going to take an offset higher in '26. Does that make sense?
So you never know year to year though, so next year
No.
the number could be lower, and now we have to deal with, yeah.
Right, it depends
Based
on,
actual
Yeah,
claims.
okay.
right, how many students are eligible,
Yeah.
and then what the reimbursement rate is from the Commonwealth.
Okay. All right, so it just, the numbers worked in our favor this year.
Is in, right, there was a year that it wasn't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because it had gone down, but
Yeah.
this was in our favor.
Okay, great.
Comment that I know that many districts get in deep trouble on this particular item. And I appreciate the way that it's managed here, so thank you.
All right, any other questions on this one?
Okay. I make a motion to approve item number 9,300, tuitions, in the amount of $3,512,269 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are
Final
to the
motion?
end. All right, so we just need a motion for the, didn't have to be worded a specific way, right?
No, just a motion to
I
approve the
make-
bottom line.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the grand total bottom line FY 2025, FY 2026 increase of one, do you want me to motion that or the total amount?
Number, the total, 75.
Total.
Okay, to approve the total FY 2026 budget of $75,650,000 as presented in the FY 2026 budget document.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. 5-0, bottom line. Okay,
Thank you.
all right. And, it's been late, okay, any, want to
Incredible.
hold off on liaison till next meeting?
I got two more
Yes.
quickies.
We got two more things? Oh, we do,
we
that's
gotta
right.
go
Ah,
back.
Items in our
All
agenda.
right,
We gotta go
geez.
back to
Wow.
the regular agenda for a minute.
All right, what else can,
I'll be quick. So we just have the personnel report for the month of January.
that's right.
Again, just list the new hires, couple of resignations, and no retirements or assignment changes.
Yeah.
Just filling you in, nothing you need to act on. And last for me is just approval of one field trip. This is Chelmsford High School, the band, chorus, and orchestra students. This is their kind of biannual, maybe it's every 3 years, I'm not sure, every 2 or 3 years. They go to Walt Disney World. This is over next, not this coming spring vacation, but April of '26.
Okay. I make a motion to approve the Chelmsford High School Band, Chorus, and Orchestra students' performing arts workshop and performances at Walt Disney World Resort, where all of your dreams do come true. From April
put that in the-
16th through the 20th, 2026 in Orlando, Florida.
I'm gonna be there.
Second.
Are you really?
All right, all the, any questions? All those in favor?
Who seconded
Aye.
it?
Aye.
Did
5-0.
John second it?
Yeah, I did, yeah, yes.
Okay,
All right,
will
we're
do.
good now?
I'm
All right.
good.
You want to hold off any liaisons till next
don't
meeting? You
have
wanna do-
any, so that's
I don't have
fine.
any, I don't have any.
That thing happened because of vacation.
Right,
Yeah,
I can do without.
okay.
all right.
Any action items, new items? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I just wanted to acknowledge, we had received a couple of emails from people asking for the school committee to issue a statement of support and solidarity with trans and non-binary students. So I just wanted to let people know about something that's come through the state, that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has actually issued something to all schools within the state. There's a whole letter. I'm just going to read some portions of it to let people know that that Chelmsford Public Schools are going to continue our mission to support all students, including trans and non-binary, anyone in the LGBTQ community, as all Massachusetts schools are directed to do. Just some quick statements I want to read from this document from the Commissioner of Education. In light of recent communications from the White House and the U.S. Department of Education, I want to share the following with you. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's educational vision remains unchanged. In its simplest form, it is to create a public education system where every student is seen, heard, and valued, and where all students have the opportunity to thrive. It goes on to include some references to the Massachusetts general law. It says our guidance on non-discrimination on the basis of gender identity in public schools is unchanged. Also gives reference to something called the Safe Schools Program for LGBTQ students. And that is available on the DESE website for anyone who's interested in referencing that. So I just want to let the public know that we are continuing in our mission to support all students.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Date on that when it was.
A date on the memo.
It said it was issued February 7th, but updated on February 11th.
Okay, thank you.
It's from the acting commissioner of DESE.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else have any other items?
No.
Okay. Don't think there's any more public comment to be had, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I think there's one guy.